Welcome to The Old World Lives, a Warhammer Fantasy Battles podcast. You can find us on Facebook at The Old World Lives, on Instagram at The Old World Lives, and you can reach us by email at theoldworldlives@gmail.com. And now, on to the episode. Hello, and welcome to episode 25 of The Old World Lives, a Warhammer Fantasy podcast. I'm Christopher, and tonight we actually have some extra people here. It's not just me. We are joined by Jimmy. Say hello, Jimmy.
Hello, everyone.
And we have a guest.
Howdy, boys. I'm Peter, or Flogger, as I'm known in the miniature community world, here to talk some demons.
Yes, and
Yes.
we enjoy some expertise within these kind of things because none of us have ever played with demons.
And for once, we actually bring in someone that knows what they're talking about instead of just guessing, which is nice,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like the bar is set, right? No guessing here. I need to know it all.
Yeah, but you can't be too professional, then you will just outshine us, and we will have to shape up, and that's not good for us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try to keep it real unprofessional, boy.
So, this is we're recording quite close to our last recording, so I'm just gonna, Jimmy, what's your progress on your Middenheimers?
Still scraping that mold lines. God, I hate it.
What's your progress on Final Fantasy VII?
I just got past Don Corneo's basement, and I've been cross-dressing. Oh yeah. We have one part of the game now. If it's gonna be
Fair
first
enough.
half, 1/4, we don't know.
Fair enough. I've never played any of those games, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. It's been keeping me busy the past couple of days and hours, but eventually I'll get back to going full in on building and painting Empire State Troopers. I still I still aim on painting up 40 of them this month.
Fair enough. So, how about our guest? What's on your hobby table?
Yeah, shit. I forgot I was actually in the pod. I thought I was just listening to it. Yeah, well, I got so psyched when Jimmy told me that he wanted me on the cast to talk demons. So I got all my old Tzeentch demons out, and I'm sitting here today. I've been clipping away all the slots from the flamers, and drilling holes in them, pinning them, and such. I'm very big into the pinning. Ever since I learned how to pin metal, I have preferred metal miniatures over plastic or resin. Um, Before I could pin, I hated metal. So I've been enjoying this. I'm really psyched to get my Tzeentch Legion up and running.
Are you
Sounds nice.
using only like 5th edition and older models, or is it like mixed with new and old metal models?
Oh yeah, no, nothing new. I'm only using, let's see, up until 1994, I think.
Oh,
So
nice.
I have Lords of Change from the Road Trader era, basically Lost on the Dam style. I have a couple of flamers from before the Beaky flamers, and I want another 4 of those because I thought I would use the old flamers as change bringers and the newer ones as flamers. And new in this case means 1994. The horrors are all the big hand horrors.
Ah, the lovely ones.
Yeah, they are lovely sculpts, especially the blue horrors from 1988. Those are my favorite, but they are so hard to get a hold of. I think I have a couple, but I would like 40 of only them.
And for people out there who just wondered, a Changebringer, what is that? That's a flamer on a disc of Tzeentch, right?
Exactly. And we shall be going through this in very, very, very much detail
Nice.
when we get to Tzeentch. I've actually thought we would go by the power of the gods. So, according to my Realm of Chaos army book, we shall be starting with, after we go through the general stuff, we shall be starting with Khorne, the most powerful of the gods, and then moving on to Tzeentch, the second most powerful, and then Nurgle, and least, the tiny, tiny, tiny Prince of Chaos, Slaanesh.
See, this is why
That
we
feels
generally
all
don't
right
have.
with you guys?
Yeah, sure. This is why we don't generally have guests on, because they're usually more prepared than we are,
That's true.
and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
First things first. Chris, what's your hobby progress?
I might have gotten Call of Duty Breakpoint for PS4. So that's been a few hours. But yeah, it's nice to actually find a game that you can actually be killed in for once.
Yeah. Also, we have some news, kinda.
I'm also currently, while we're recording this, I'm gonna
Yeah.
take the back seat for the demon stuff, and then I'm gonna let Jimmy talk a lot about it because I am gonna finish my bolt thrower tonight. That's my
Oh
quest.
my.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's what I'm doing. And you said news. There's a squirrel. I've seen a squirrel.
Yeah, it's a squirrel, everyone. This past
Oh, yeah,
weekend,
it was adorable.
yeah, this past weekend, GW had their preview number 2 on new models. And the thing is, they showed us a very cute little squirrel on a, what's this? It's a tree man.
Yeah, they claim it's a tree man. It's like a
It's more,
yeah.
more like a
It's a really
something else.
elaborate base for a squirrel.
Person.
It's an
Yeah,
elaborate base for a squirrel.
an elaborate base for a squirrel. Also, there
Yeah.
were some news about upcoming giants, but we'll see about that eventually. Just look to the
Yeah.
horizon and see what we get.
There was a lovely little preview of the Angels of Death if you're into 40k.
Yeah.
I'm really liking the art
Also,
style for that.
yeah,
And what else do we have? We have
we have the
Said
Demon,
the giants
Demon
are actually the
Huge.
Sky Titan.
yeah, the Sky Titans of old.
It's just gonna be
Awesome.
you can field one giant and it's 800 power levels or whatever that game is counting.
They're using points nowadays.
Ah, fair enough. So it's you just put down a like a 2-year-old on the table and claim it's a giant, and everything it tosses off the table is destroyed.
Yes, but only if you speak to the 2-year-old and he speaks back.
Oh no.
If it has a bigger mustache than the opponent.
Yeah. So I
Never
see that
hashtag never forget.
I see that Jens and Krell will have a fair advantage on us then if we were ever to play Age of Sigmar, but we're not.
Yeah,
But I am looking at these lovely, lovely elves that's gonna be released.
yeah.
I really, really want them.
Like I've said before, tone them down slight bit. Just scrape off
Yeah,
runes from some shields and whatever.
I'm gonna remove the mops from their heads.
Yeah, I saw someone actually did that in the Photoshop. Just removed the bull head from the top, and they actually looked really good all of a sudden.
I like that the spearmen are multi-part, so you can actually move the spears for them. At least that's what they said in the video. We don't know if that
Yeah,
is true.
I'm looking forward to see how the spruce are gonna look for these guys.
Yeah, it might just be that it's the old style of the attachment point for the spears, so you can just decide on if it's gonna be lowered or raised.
I don't
But
think
we'll
there's
see.
any other news that we could talk about because otherwise there were some books are gonna be released. There's gonna be some 40k models, 30k models, but that's not
Yes.
fit for the old world.
Well, Demonofuge is 20 years old. We could just talk about those lovely models and that re-release of the comic, because I've been staring at those two models since yesterday, or whatever it was.
Yeah, I know you have.
Not sure about the face on Efrel Stern, but yeah.
I think it's mostly the painting. The paint job does a lot,
Yeah,
or sometimes it does
yeah.
less for a model.
Oh, well, that was the news, right? Because
Also,
that's
yeah,
not
very,
been all the
very
time.
quick preview. There's going to be preview number 3 on April 18th. So I'm looking forward to it and hope they show something that I can use in the old world or for some other nefarious project of mine
Oh,
in
yeah.
more time.
You can also get Soul Wars for 99p on the Black Library audio app. And if you want to be annoyed by everything either being called something with Sigmar in the beginning or something with Nagash in the beginning, you can get this one because it's great. I've tried to finish this book for like 2 months. I can read a few pages and then I get annoyed for the naming conventions and everything that's just stupid. But yeah, I don't really know why I gave it a chance.
Oh, here's a big one. Until the end of April, for every gift voucher of £50 or whatever your equivalent is in your country, for every voucher you buy, you get another £5 for free. So if you wanna plan up, if you wanna plan some purchases for your armies, buy vouchers, and get more money to spend. This continues throughout whole of April, according to GW. Get those projects going.
Mm, yeah.
So yeah, I think that's about it. Are we going to the fun part?
Yeah, I reckon we should just move on to the fun part. This episode will be, as we mentioned, about demons, and it will also be about the Beasts of Chaos, but that is in a separate recording that's already been done with Niklas and a voice actor that was really expensive but sounds almost like Krell. So it's almost immaculate. Just a tiny bit of difference. But first of all, there will be a rundown of the demon list for 6th edition, and I'm gonna hand over to Jimmy and Peter so they can go through it because they know more than I do, and I really want to paint.
The Altdorf Advertising Agency, the AAA, is looking for new customers. We provide advertising space and targeted campaigns on toads, in village halls, and we even provide our own official worthy lecturers, the owls. We are currently interested in promoting local wise old women, hedge wizards, imaginists, and purveyors of Cathay and Skyfire. The Altdorf Advertising Agency, the AAA, is a branch of the Holy Order of the Templars of Sigmar. Contact your local witch hunter for more information. Witch may be drowned as well as burned at the stake. For our repeat informer reward scheme, please acquire within Heretic.
You go on and paint, and we will start. So, Flogger, do you reckon we should start with the normal demons from the normal Hordes of Chaos list, or do you want to go straight into the Demonic Legion army list and talk about everything there and like pull in all the normal demon units into that part?
Well, Jimmy, I'm glad that you asked. See, I've already prepared like a TV chef, and
Yeah?
I figured that in the document I've written before me, I've gone through the general rules, but also the difference to them compared to the Hordes of Chaos ones.
Nice. So we'll go with that.
We can basically just throw ourselves right into the Demonic Legion army list. Basically, page 27 of the Storm of Chaos book.
Yeah.
That's where we're gonna start our journey through the demon void. And well, as we all know, demons are immune to psychology, and all their attacks are magical, and they cause fear. Those are the basic rules of the army. And if you have played Warhammer 6th edition, you know that these rules are all extremely powerful, just as a baseline.
That's true. They also have some form of protection.
Yeah, the entire army has a 5+ ward save, and the thing is that in Hordes of Chaos, this ward save is ignored by magical attacks and magic or spells. But in the Demonic Legion army list, that was upgraded into a normal ward save. So basically, the entire army always gets a 5+ save versus everything, because there's nothing in 6th edition that ignores ward saves, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And on top of this, every single demon in the army gets +1 leadership.
Wow.
This means that greater demons and demon princes actually go to leadership 10, and this is huge.
That is huge. That is nasty, if anything.
Both the demonic aura change and the break test for instability, that with +1 leadership, both those are big freaking deals, and they are what basically put mono god demonic legions on the battlefields, because they finally became the powerhouse of the 6th edition.
And I think this is mostly to represent that they are more strongly bound to our realm than they usually are when they are summoned. This is like an incursion. They spill out from the north, following the strong winds of chaos.
Exactly, Be'lakor, the Dark Master, kind of pulled them all out, and then he kind of kept them there.
Because he knows how to do it.
Of course, until Teclis took his stone and said,
Yeah.
"Go away," and they all went away. I hate Teclis.
Who doesn't?
I don't know. Should we talk about Be'lakor at all, or our special characters? I
We
mean,
can-
to me,
we can
they
mention
are not
him.
that interesting.
I think we can go through his rules and everything after the army list.
We can take him last because he's actually
Yeah.
undivided. So
Yeah.
he's like the only because he's the first demon prince. He's kind of cool
Yeah.
in that sense. But okay, let's continue with the general things. On top of this, immune to psychology, magic attack, cause fear, and the +1 leadership and the demonic aura. On top of this, there was another change made, which means that for demonic gifts, which are essentially magic items for demons, you could only take one. all the magic items or demonic gifts were 0 to 1 per army. But in this army list, you could take multiples.
Oh.
This was, well, as we say in Demon World, hell to the because this you could never take multiples on the same demon. So, for example, the
That's fair.
Spellbreaker, which is the spell scroll, you could not take 2 of those on a Demon Prince, for example, even though they're only 25 points. You could take multiple, but you have to split them up across characters.
That makes sense. I like it.
This was a big deal mostly for Slaanesh. We'll get to that when we get to Slaanesh in the end of this, but it was a big deal especially for them. So then there was a new demonic. The big thing about demonic gifts is, of course, that they will not get affected by spells that target or damage magic items, because they are not magic items. They are like magic items, except that they are better in every single way possible.
Then they also got some new things, unholy icons. What did those do?
Yeah, they got they got 2 new things basically. First of all, they got access to Diabolic Splendor, that gift that basically previously that gift gave your character, your demonic character, a regular ward save. But since the entire army now has that, it increases it by 1, so it goes down to 4+. And yeah, Demon Princess with the 4+ ward save is the shizzle, and
that's
very
nasty.
good. But it does not apply to any unit he joins, and that's where, as you mentioned, Jimmy, the unholy icon comes in. So 1 unit standard bearer can be given an unholy icon for 50 points, which gives his entire unit +1 to the word save, so 4+. But note, does not apply to characters joining the unit.
Fair enough.
The entire unit gets a 4+ word save. This was a big deal mainly for the Nurgle army lists, because they like to run a big nasty block of plague bearers, which are unkillable almost with this item. Then there's actually, well, let's say the most important part almost for an infantry heavy demonic legion is the greater icon of chaos. Finally, it was possible for demons to take a battle standard bearer that got you to re-roll the break test or the instability test, and this was massive.
Yes, sounds like a big game changer.
This was definitely a game changer, because previously it was kind of nasty to play demons. You know, it was kind of scary because if you had a big unit, they were only leadership 8, so if they had to take an instability test, you roll a 9, and they just are removed from the battlefield. And that was they basically they couldn't what do you say, they couldn't keep themselves in this realm, so they were disposed of, come back to the void, or to the, what do you call it, the chaos wastes or something. But this was a big deal. Now you could reroll. Overall, many armies with Demonic Legion as well, you could play around this. You don't have to take the battle standard or the greater icon, but if you do play infantry heavy, it's very important. Because losing a combat by 1 and then losing an entire unit because of that, or even worse, a greater demon. I mean, losing a great unclean one with 9 wounds left is not fun.
That's gonna hurt.
It's going to hurt a lot.
Oh yeah.
The funny thing, they also changed the Banner of the Gods for the Demonic Legion. It basically became carried by a herald, and all friendly units within 6 gain hatred against all enemies, even though they're immune to psychology.
Cool.
It was actually an awesome banner, but you could never play it because it's 125 points.
Yeah, it's so very pricey for just hatred.
It's very pricey. So it was it was cool if you played like 3,000 points or something, and then you could take it. But if you're playing the regular, 2,000 or maybe 2,250 was, I think, the standard back in those days.
Yeah.
Then it was hard to it was hard to squeeze in a herald with a greater demon. I mean, getting that banner on top of it, that's the whole unit gone. So that was an issue. Another big thing that they did in the Demonic Legion list was that they basically turned all core units into clan rats in one sense, that they became true core units. This means that you must take Bloodletters, Plaguebearers, Horrors, or Demonettes, one of those, to be able to unlock other units. So maybe basically consider special and rare choices to be 0 to 1 per true core unit. If you want 2 units of mounted demonettes, no, that's stupid. No, actually, they're core units. So 2 units of pleasure seekers, which are basically fiends in this edition. You need to take 2 units of demonettes as well. Otherwise, you can only take 1 unit. Or that was a big thing. You actually had to have the baseline infantry in the army.
There,
But of course,
that
they could not
yeah.
take command groups.
Yes, and that makes so much more sense that I can have them now because I never really understood why they left it out. They have their little explanation in the Hordes of Chaos book, but I don't buy it. Previous editions could have command groups, and later editions could. So this does a lot for those demon units because if you don't have a musician and you get a draw, you lose by 1, and that could be devastating for a demon unit. That musician is a must.
This was really good for the demons, for the core units.
Yeah.
Once again, actually played right into the hands of plague bearers because they had so few attacks usually. So they really liked the plus in the combat resolution. So
Yeah.
they needed that a lot because they only have the 1 attack. But yeah, and of course, another big thing: greater demons do not take up a rare choice in demonic legion armies. They only take up a lord and a hero choice.
Yay! Freeing
This
up the
means
rare
that
choice.
you're picking up the rare choice, and this was mostly played into the hands of Slaanesh and Tzeentch because their rare choices are quite cheap, but Nurgle and Khorne are very expensive, so it didn't really make much of a difference to them. So that's basically, now we've gone through most of the general list changes that are different from the Hordes of Chaos book.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I have a question
not
before
to
we
mention
continue.
Furies. Yeah.
The Great Icon of Chaos, the model that carries this can take a magic banner. Is any of the banners from the Realm of Chaos, from the Hordes of Chaos book, any good on those units at all, or is it just better to take a non-upgraded battle standard bearer, so to say?
Tell you the truth, I mean they're allowed to take both Hordes and Beasts of Chaos armies banners, but the only thing that I've seen on the greater icons that could be worth it, because you must remember that most of those banners are expensive, and demonic heralds are already very pricey, especially since they cannot be the army general, so you need another beast in there. But I think the War Banner is probably the only one that I've seen that is very good because demons like to win combats.
Yeah, combat resolution is very good for demons.
It's very good for demons, and considering the unit strength of demons are often quite large, especially when they get a monster or a chariot in there, they actually auto break units several times if they win. So it's or several times. So say it should be quite common that they auto break units because auto break is a thing in 6th edition, and if you haven't read up on it, do it because you will lose every
Yeah.
game if you don't know about it.
It's not a problem for me because I play Night Goblins and I flee regardless. Auto breaking.
Yeah,
Although I will never be outnumbered by a fear-causing enemy, but I will break anyways.
That's true. That's the funny thing, isn't it? When people said about these clan Scryer Skaven armies that had all the shootiness and everyone was terrified of them because they had like warp lightning cannons and rattling guns, and all the demon players are like, "Have you ever charged a warp lightning cannon with a terror causer that has a higher unit strength?" Yeah, it's hilarious because they just run off the table. That's like all they do. Every single they just run away. It's just so much fun. All right, I forgot to mention Chaos Furies. They actually are 0 to 1 in this army list per character that has Mark of Undivided. This means that you often will not see them in the armies because you usually don't have a character with Mark of Undivided. There's one exception to this, which is what we will move along to now, which is, of course, Khorne, or as we call them, Fantastic Frenzy.
Yeah.
Khorne demon armies have 3 things that are very powerful or very weird. Army-wide frenzy. Single thing that has Mark of Khorne has frenzy. This is so bad, but you can learn how to control it. Just like any TV series or movie that you've ever seen where someone gained magical powers and they said you can learn how to control it. That's what you need to do. There are some tricks out there for you. The big thing here also with Khorne demons versus warriors of Khorne is that they don't get any extra dispel dice. Because anyone who's played warriors of chaos with Khorne, they know that you will never. I mean, the opponent will not get to cast spells because you will have so many dispel dice. But with demons, that is not so. They instead of this, they get magic resistance. And Magic Resistance 1 is not very powerful. Magic Resistance 2, it's alright. It does a lot. And of course, no Khorne armies have any magic whatsoever. Although, they hate magic. It's
Yeah.
for weaklings. Exactly. Casting a spell. Why? You can just punch someone.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Here is my axe. That's point A. Point B is your face. Hua!
So how do you cast spells? Well, I apply axe to face. That's my spell. So we're gonna start going through the choices that we have in the Khorne demon armies, and the first biggest, baddest baddie out there, the Bloodthirster. Nothing hits like the Bloodthirster, and nothing can basically survive being hit by a Bloodthirster. It's just totally wicked.
They're so good at killing everything they get in touch with. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is that they are the ultimate chariot killer because they have strength 7.
Yes.
So they are chariot hunter. I mean, once you've seen this guy charge into 5 Tomb King chariots with the Tomb King and just wipe them all out in a single close combat phase, it's just, yeah, that's bad. And also, Screaming Bell, very, very sad.
Yeah.
So, the funny thing is that he has a 4+ armor save. He's one of the few demons that actually has armor. But that's kind of a Khorne thing. They're wearing their
it is
armor.
Yeah.
He also has Killing Blow. So if you are a character and you think, I'll kill you, you won't, because they'll kill you first. I mean, the guy has, I think, if I remember correctly, is 8 attacks on the charts, 7 base.
7 attacks. I don't. Oh no, he's hit frenzy. Yeah, 8 attacks all the time. And since he's a demon, he can't lose his frenzy. That's nasty.
Can't lose frenzy.
Oh yeah, he still can. He can still lose combats and lose frenzy.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
until
I was thinking,
he loses,
what? Have I been playing this wrong?
But until he loses combat, and I don't think he will have 8 attacks.
Exactly. It's true. He will basically never lose frenzy except versus giants.
Yeah.
Because Yell and Ball.
Yell and Ball, baby. It's the only thing that kind of threatens Bloodthirsters. So should we go through his stats?
His stats are, also the best stats in the game, I think. I don't think anyone can pass this. He has a movement of 6, but that's sort of irrelevant because he has fly. But then he has a weapon skill of 10. And this is just, there's only, I think it's only Blood Dragon Vampire Lords that reach this level other than the Bloodthirster.
Yeah. This also means that anyone below weapon skill 5 hits him on 5s.
Exactly. So every single infantry unit out there that is not the elite, like Sword Masters or something, Grail Knights, they will be hitting him on 5s. And wounding him on 6s in most cases as well. Or 5s if they're carrying great weapons or something. So, yeah. Because he has a strength of 7. He has strength of 6, but he has the Might of Khorne. Demonic gift, so it goes up to 7, which is why he's a chariot hunter. He has ability skill of 0 because why shoot where you can just apply axe to face.
Exactly.
He has a toughness of 6 and 7 wounds. This is a big deal. He doesn't have 6 wounds like many of the others, like the other 2 greater demons that have less than 10 wounds. And he cannot get one shot by a cannon. That's a big thing because everyone knows that. A Bloodthirster with 1 wound remaining hits just as hard as when he has 7 wounds. Of course, an initiative of 10. So
why wouldn't
almost everything? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like the fastest out there. Is so fast. And attack 7, and then with frenzy that turns into 8, which is very fluffy because 8 is the number of Khorne.
Yeah.
And then he has a leadership of 9, which turns into 10 if you're playing Demonic Legion. So, and it's 650 points. So he's a bit pricey. He's almost most pricey out of the greater demons. and he hits like a ton of bricks. The
He
funny
sure
thing
does.
is, he has frenzy, he is a large target, and he flies. When you hear those three things mentioned, a quick thing should go up into your head thinking, wait a minute, how do you even deploy this guy? Yeah, that's right. You deploy him with his back facing the enemy. It looks ridiculously stupid, but if you don't, he'll probably die the first turn of the game.
Yeah.
Uh,
Because
thi- uh, this
otherwise,
is
people, yeah, because he can be baited through his frenzy, and it's really
exactly.
stupid.
So with Khorne Demons, you always want to take first turn because then you can deploy him facing forwards, and that looks so much cooler. um, Playing an army-wide frenzy is hard. Playing flyers that are large targets with frenzy is very hard. But the good thing is, once you're up the board, you can often choose what to charge because most things will be
Yeah.
within 20 inches. So that's why it's important to get that first turn because then you can actually get up, get into position, and do your thing. I remember when I played my Khorne Demons many years ago versus my friend's Vampire Counts, and he had the Blood Knights. I think it was 7th edition that they had Frenzy. So I flew Furies up first turn, and he had to charge them, and then I could flank charge them with the Bloodthirster, and his general died turn 2, and then we could kind of call the game because that's what happens.
Yeah.
So friends, it's very important when you play Frenzy that you need to learn how to control this. There are some tricks. We're going to go through them in a bit. That's basically all I have on the Greater Demons. The Greater Demons cannot take any demonic gifts. They sort of have them built in to their costs, and you can't choose anything. So that's why they're so expensive as well. He also has Magic Resistance 2. That's important to remember. Magic Resistance 2 does a lot more than Magic Resistance 1. Because Magic Resistance 2 can actually stop spells. That means that every time they're targeted by a spell, you get to roll 2 dispel dice. Not just once, but every time. Well, that's the thing. And Princess of Khorne is the next one, the next Lord choice. And this is actually a thing, because Mark of Khorne will grant you an extra dispel dice for the Demon Prince. Because it's not, well, Demon Princes are sort of warriors and sort of demons. They're sort of a mix. So they get the benefits of the Mark just as warriors do. So this is a little handy. That extra dispel dice can help you a lot. Other thing is, it's not a large target. So controlling Frenzy is a little easier because they also fly. Mark of Khorne grants you Frenzy. 200 points cheaper than the Bloodthirster. Compared to, other gods where the demon princes often go to almost the same cost as a greater demon, close to anyway. But the Khorne demon princes, of course, cannot have spells or magic levels. You can almost get the demon prince and an exalted demon for the price of one bloodthirster. Of course, that means you'll be missing out on a herald because the choices are you run out of choices, and thus the greater icon, which is of course bad, but it's possible. Demon prince is quite all right, but to be honest, I just don't see any reason to take a Demon Prince of Khorne in front of a Bloodthirster army. Because if you're going to give a Mark of Khorne, just upgrade it to a Bloodthirster, and you'll have so much more fun because it's just that much cool.
And it's worth it on every single turn.
Every single turn. I mean, it's amazing compared to the Demon Prince. It's the big deal with the Bloodthirsters compared to Demon Princes also is the unit strength. A Bloodthirster will break ranks because the unit strength 7, whilst a Demon Prince will not because the unit strength 3. Getting a flank charge with a flyer that's a large target is not that hard. It will happen eventually, as long as you're not, fooled by some sort of great eagle or something.
God, I hate those eagles.
Yeah, horrible things. Great eagle should be banned. The elf player laughing in the background. The Exalted Demon is the hero choice that has to be your general, because Demonic Herald, which is the next one, cannot be your general. So if you're running games of lower than 2,000 points where you cannot have lords, you actually have to take an Exalted Demon. And it can have 50 points of gifts. It's basically a demon prince, but a little, basically one less in several stats. I don't know, should we go through the stat lines of the Exalted Demons, because they will pop out in every list under...
Let's go through it now, so we at least have gone through it.
Yeah, because then we don't have to go through it for all the other
Yeah,
gods.
exactly.
An Exalted Demons is 2 hero choices, which applies also in the Demonic Legion army list. Weapon skill 7, strength toughness 5, and 3 wounds, initiative 7 for attacks. A movement of 6, but not really relevant considering it's a flyer as well. Leadership 9, like most demons in the Demonic Legion.
Yeah.
It has 8 in
Yeah.
basis, yeah.
So
Um,
these are basically like lord-like stats for any other army, but here it's a hero level, but an expensive hero level.
a double hero level.
Exactly. Yeah, taking up 2 slots
Um,
does a lot.
does a lot. But not so much for demons because everything is so ridiculously expensive. So even if they took up 1, you probably wouldn't even notice the difference.
Yeah.
So that's a little funny, but yeah, that's sort of how it is. It has terror. This is a big deal. Just as I mentioned, charging warp lightning cannons with terror causers, having fly and terror is very powerful, regardless of anything you have on your model. If you have fly and terror, you can cause a lot of mayhem in armies. Especially Jimmy will know this as a Night Goblin player. Terror.
Yeah.
How do you like terror, Jimmy?
I
On
hate
flyers.
it. On fire. I don't think I can handle it. Oh yes, I can because I have fanatics.
That's true, actually. Fanatic.
Yeah.
That's
What stops because that's what stops everyone from causing terror on multiple units, because once you reach within 8 inches, which is the terror, I think 8 inches, or is it 6 inches for terror? I don't remember. But once you get it within 8 inches of a Night Goblin unit with fanatics, they release them, and the movement ends for the models that got within 8 inches. So that's my way
the
of
movement even
it ends for that model. So you can keep moving other units
Oh.
afterwards, but the movement ends for that for the unit that made them come out. So if I am the one who walks within the enemy units and I release them, then my movement ends for that particular unit.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know
Yeah.
that because I haven't played goblins in 6th edition, so I'm not really well read up on the rules. And of course, all the rules for fanatics and squigs and stuff is like reading a Bible.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know.
But I had no idea that your movement stopped. But even if it didn't, you will never use flying demon princes or exalted demons to try to release fanatics because they will die to
No.
fanatics.
Yeah.
And they are so bad at this. Actually, fanatics are one of the demonic legion's worst things because they have nothing that can draw them out, except of course in this army where you have flesh hounds, and then maybe in the other armies you have some other choices. But in general, if you want to draw them out early with flyers, no way.
Yeah, I mean,
Unless of course you have a unit
in that
of
case,
Furies and you have
yeah, but they're very expensive.
yeah, definitely. I mean, and if I have neutered my entire list to be able to handle fanatics, I've probably gone wrong from the beginning. So, yeah. Anyway, Exalted Demon. Let's continue with him. The mark is the same, Frenzy, and an extra dispel dice. Kind of neat. 50 points of gifts. Usually you would take either Blade of the Ether, because that ignores armor saves. They have strength 5, so they already get -2, but ignoring it is quite neat when you face things like knights.
Yeah.
But what also is very good on the Exalted Demon is Soul Hunger, which allows them to re-roll to hit rolls in every round of combat. It's basically eternal hatred.
Damn, that's nasty.
And it's only 25 points. And the thing is that when you have 50 points of gifts, you can have Soul Hunger and Spellbreaker. And for Khorne demon armies, having that Dispel scroll does a lot, because you will not have wizards, you will not generate Dispel dice other than the one from your Exalted Demon. So having an extra Dispel scroll is quite neat.
Hungry
Next
for them
unit is-
spells.
Yeah, really hungry for those spells. The next one is the Demonic Herald. This is a very good thing for Khorne armies, Khorne demonic legions. Whatever you do to Demonic Herald, do not, and I repeat, do not, with capital letters, give it Mark of Khorne. It's very, very bad. And I will explain to you why. Because if you look at blood letters, they have a movement stat of 4. And heralds, they have a movement stat of 6, which means they will frenzy charge out of the units they're standing in.
Oh god damn.
if there's something you don't want your battle standard bearer to do, is charge the enemy's great eagle in a weird angle by himself. you know, yeah, you don't want that. So this is why Khorne demon armies actually would like this guy to be Mark of Undivided and keep him outside of units. Because if you have Mark of Undivided, you cannot join Khorne units. You cannot join
Yeah.
units of the gods. But since we're playing 6th edition, the best edition, they can stand next to the units or behind them and still grant the benefits of the icons.
And benefits from not being targeted, which is very important for lone characters.
Very important. The stat line of the Demonic Herald is like a toned down Exalted Demon. It has a weapon skill of 6, movement of 6, strength 5, toughness 4, 2 wounds, initiative 6, and 3 attacks with leadership 9. Book of Khorne does granted 6+ armor save, but that will not help when you're standing there having charged a great eagle that fled and you're standing in front of the entire enemy army by yourself. So you want this to be undivided, and there's also another reason for that. You want it to be undivided so you can take a unit of Furies, because when it comes to Khorne demonic legions, Furies help you control frenzy because you can fly them in front of your own units to deny line of sight.
Yeah,
so
because screening units are very, very important.
very important. And so, I mean, you want a demonic in general. Khorne demonic legions were quite infantry heavy, quite unit heavy. There were a lot of units in those lists because they are very good. The baseline of the units are very, very good. So you want a demonic eye. You want a what do you call it, greater icon in these lists, and you want it on an undivided character. And sometimes you want a unit of Furies to be able to help you along with the controlling of friends. So yeah, the demonic herald can only take 25 points of demonic gifts, which means that usually it'll take a spellbreaker, especially in Khorne lists, or if you have an exalted demon that already has a spellbreaker. Yeah, I mean you can run 2 if you're fighting in a meta with a lot of high elves and lizardmen. You might want 2 spellbreakers. But in general, if they're standing in a unit, they can have soul hunger. But since with Khorne armies you don't want them in a unit, you're probably just better off with either Diabolic
Yeah.
Splendor, giving them a 4+ ward save, or a spellbreaker.
The only
of course, they
time
can
I
also
could
take-
see them, yeah, the only time I could see them having Mark of Khorne is if they are going to ride a demonic mount. That's the only time I see them carrying the Mark of Khorne myself.
Yeah, because on a Juggernaut, with a unit of Blood Crushers, or even actually, this was also a thing. You could actually put it on the Juggernaut of Khorne and then put it into a unit of Bloodletters. But even then, it will have to charge out of the unit.
Yeah,
So then you need something to stand in front.
yeah.
So moving on to the most important Khorne thing ever, of course, the Bloodletters. These are the true core units of the Khorne armies, Khorne demonic legions. They are 16 points. They're quite pricey, but when you look at their stat line, which is movement 4, so quite slow, but that's fine. Movement 4 was quite standard in these days. Weapon skill 5, strength 5, toughness 3, 1 wound, initiative 4, and 1 attack, with leadership 8, which goes to 9. It also has frenzy, so the 1 attack is a bit misleading. It actually has 2 attacks until it loses combat. And then it has magic resistance 1. I mean, and weapon skill 5, strength 5, 2 attacks, initiative 4. This is the stat line of an elite unit. They are core.
And don't let the
Basically the
toughness,
stat line of a swordmaster.
yeah. Also, if people are like thrown off by toughness 3, remember it's a 5+ ward save. It does a lot, and they can carry the icon, so they get the 4+ if you play Khorne only.
Yeah, you can take the unholy icon, which is
Yeah.
great for a large unit.
Yeah,
And remember, and also to remember, they actually have light armor, so they actually have a 6+5 up.
yeah,
So if you're strength 3 versus them, they actually get 2 saves. Sure,
Yeah.
it's just a 6+, but when you're affected by some sort of spell or something that does
yeah.
damage to the entire unit, as such, it makes a difference. And this is a great unit. You want many of these. You want to run them 6 wide because that way they will fight a lot. Either you run them 6 wide if you're running like units of 12 or 14, or you run them 4 wide in a 16 strong, so you get 4x4, so you get the full rank bonus. Weapon skill 5 is massive, especially when fighting stuff, like the weak, oh, so weak night goblins. Um, and of course, skeletons as well. Because night goblins and skeletons, they'll be hitting you on 5s because they're weapon skill 2.
Yep.
And this is quite neat. So that toughness 3 won't really matter because things won't hit you. At least those won't. Strength 5 is great because the old world standard of units toughness is 3. So you'll basically be wounding on 2s most of the time. All elves and all humans have a toughness of 3. So wounding them on 2s. And I mean, we're also talking like, knights, like Britannia and Empire Knights, they're still toughness 3. So
They
you'll
are.
be wounding them on 2s. It does a lot. Many years ago, the armies I saw, the Khorne demon armies that actually did very well in tournaments, they had either several larger units, like 4 16-man bloodletter units, or they had shitloads of smaller units, total MSU style. We're talking, like 6 units of 12 bloodletters. Because in many cases, bloodletters almost always win combat. Even when they get charged, the 6+5 up ward usually helps them fight back. And they have 2 attacks each, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s. They usually do quite a bit of damage. And this MSU style was quite fun. It actually, I don't remember if it won any grand tournaments, but it did quite well there for a while. 6 units of bloodletters, 6 units of fleshhounds. And we're going to go through fleshhounds next, because fleshhounds are awesome in this Khorne demonic legion. Bloodletters are great. Run a lot of them. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Fleshhounds is another core unit, but they do not count towards your minimum number of core. It's sort of like warhounds don't count towards minimum number of core. Because fleshhounds here, they are quite weak compared to if you'd be playing any other editions of Warhammer Fantasy, either before the 6th edition or after the 6th edition. This is the weakest version of fleshhounds ever made, but they're also one of the strongest because they have the fast cavalry rule. And fast cavalry, we all know, is freaking amazing.
Yeah, it is the bane of flank charges. I mean, God, I love positioning fast attack units for future charges because, like, you use the like how you mentioned deploying the greater demons looking behind. You can do the same with fleshhounds and still move as far as they would if they look forward because they can move however they want and just reform. Just their move is like 7, so move them 14 inches sideways, backways, in front. Just do whatever. They can turn wherever they want. The free reforming does a lot. Yeah.
They are so good, and they hit surprisingly hard
Yeah.
for being fast cavalry. Because they have 2 attacks each, weapon skill 5 here as well, and strength of 4, initiative 4 as well. So, I mean, on the charge, you get from 5 fleshhounds, or maybe you ran 6, because 6 wide is always nice for those extra 2 attacks.
Yeah.
That's 12 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, versus most infantry out there. Along with this, they have magic resistance 2. And how do you usually handle fast cavalry, small units? Yeah, you magic missile them with like fireball and stuff. D6 strength 4 hits, or 5 hits, or whatever. But these guys with magic resistance 2, they are quite resilient to magic missiles. And they are ridiculously cheap. They only cost 16 points, the same points as a bloodletter.
Yeah, I know. It's like you get two warhounds for the price of 1 fleshhound. It's like, yeah, I have more wounds having more warhounds, but with the fleshhounds, more attacks per model, but also that sweet ward save and fear. I mean, like, come on. You can charge like all fast cav. You can charge on war machines or small units and harass them, and with fear, you might as well be able to outnumber them because every fleshhound counts as 2 models. So if you face units with 10 models or less, they will flee if they lose their combats.
Yeah, and they might even flee from the charge.
Yes.
They're outnumbered by a fear-causing enemy, which means they might even run before you even reach them. So, I mean, they're having fear, ward save, frenzy, magic resistance. They are one of the best fast cav units out there. Then we, of course, have the negative, having frenzy and movement 14 and fast cav. Yeah, that happens. So, But that's fine because you can run so many of these because they're so cheap. As I said, 6 units of 6 of these is a thing. And I mean, that's fine. One of them charges an eagle. Who cares? You have 5 other units. They work. So, yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to go by min-maxing them, like just using 5, that's 80 points. That's nothing. Nothing in an army list. That's so cheap for what you get.
Yeah. Let's also not forget, because they're fast cab, they can block a lot of line of sight for your important things that are not allowed to charge away because of frenzy. Because the way frenzy works is that you need to have line of sight at the start of the charge phase. Because even if the hounds need to charge
And-
something and
yeah.
the one behind it now has line of sight to something else, that does not trigger a frenzy charge. Don't have line of sight in the beginning, it's fine. So you can. Flash hounds like to run before Exalted Demons, for example. Escort, if you will.
That's a nice choice of words.
Isn't it? Yeah, with their back facing the enemy. The next unit we're going to go through, this is a new unit. It's new and improved, and it's amazing. It's Blood Crushers. Basically, blood letters mounted on juggernauts of Khorne, and they are on 50mm square bases. These things, I mean, they're so cool. They're expensive, but they're so cool. And rule of cool is the most
Yes.
important. In my Khorne army list, I run 2 units of 3 of these. They have 4 attacks each because of frenzy, and this is the real kicker. They have weapon skill 5, movement 7, weapon skill 5, strength 5, toughness 5, 3 wounds, and 3 attacks, initiative 3. So they're a little slower than regular bloodletters, but they make up for it by having +2 in toughness and +2 attacks. So, I mean, these things, I mean, they hit like a ton of bricks. It's 4 attacks each, 3 of them. That's 12 attacks right into you, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s. And they also have a 5+ armor save. So, toughness 5, 5+ armor save, 5+ ward save. They're extremely resilient, hit like a ton of bricks, and they move quite fast because movement 7, I mean, that's basically standard human barded cavalry. They're quite fast.
Yeah. And they hit just as hard. Unless they're Knights of the Inner Circle, but yeah, come on. This is gonna be way deadlier.
Definitely, because it's like, yeah, sure, the Inner Circle have like +1 strength, but these guys have 4 attacks.
Yeah. And weapon
So-
skill 5. Damn.
Yeah, they hit. Yeah, there's one thing that is the bane of these. That's killing blow. So don't run
Yeah.
into grave guards, whatever you do. Don't run them into whites of any kind, really, unless it's cavalry whites, so you can wipe them on the charge. Because, yeah, even though they're on 50mm bases, they're still bloodletters mounted.
Yeah.
So they are
Just cavalry.
they are just cavalry. They also have magic resistance 1. They have a unit strength of 3, so 3 of them have a unit strength of 9, which is perfectly fine because after a couple of turns, you'll outnumber your opponent. A couple of combat rounds, but they're 80 points each. So 3 of them is 240 points. It's quite a lot of points. I like to run 2 units, as I mentioned, so that's almost 500 points. They cannot have command. The thing with all these special units, they cannot have command. That's the thing. But that's fine. They don't really need it.
No. And if anyone out there have command groups model on their newer models, just ignore the command group. They're just fancy looking models.
Exactly, definitely. If you've modeled them, awesome. It looks cool. Just to be fair and remind your opponent that that banner is not actually there.
That
So-
banner is gonna hit someone in the face like an axe.
Apply banner to face. That's what it is. So yeah, they're awesome and they're hit like a ton of bricks, but they're expensive. So if you want to go the MSU route, you cannot take them. But if you want to go more along the, a little of this, little of that, have a cool looking army, you definitely want these. Also quite fun to convert if you have the older models, because I have the 5th edition bloodletters on the old juggernauts, and it's a little work, but it actually looks real cool. So next is of course the rare unit. This is the first time these things pop up that I know of anyway. The chariots of the gods. So the chariot of Khorne is basically it's a chaos chariot pulled by a juggernaut, but instead of chaos warriors on top, there are 2 bloodletters on top, and this is the coolest thing. It can actually be pulled by 2 juggernauts. You can add another one for 20 points. And I mean, If you're not going up against a lot of strength 7 that auto-kills chariots, this thing is very strong. You always take the extra jugger. It's d6 plus 1 strength 5 auto hits, along with 8 weapon skill 5 strength 5 attacks from the crew and horses, and it does a whole lot of killing. 190 points with the extra jugger. It's quite expensive, but it actually sort of hits harder than 3 blood crushers do for cheaper points, especially on the charge. It's also unit strength 5, which means that it breaks ranks if you get it into a flank. And the real thing, toughness 5, 5 wounds, and a freaking 3+ armor save.
And that's on top of the ward save as well. Wow.
That's on top of the ward save. It's also large target, but that doesn't really matter a lot because you can't charge through. It doesn't have fly like your other large targets do. So it's sort of fine. It's easier to shoot it down, but I mean, come on. 5 wounds, toughness 5, 3+ armor save, 5+ ward save. Yeah, you're not shooting that thing down.
Yeah.
I mean, every cannon you aim at it, the Khorne player is just gonna smile. Yeah, shoot that thing. Then you're not shooting my bloodthirster. It's no worries.
Yeah.
Basically, a summation of the Khorne armies. They usually do rather well with an MSU type list. A good choice of army is actually, how do you say, a general. It's actually an Exalted Demon that's undivided. Then you run 5 units of 12 letters or something, 5 units of 6 flesh hounds, a unit of 7 furies to either march block, hunt war machines, stop frenzy charges, and so on. And now we come to the worst possible matchup for Khorne demons. Oh, this is so much fun. I can't wait to tell you guys this. Slayer cult army list. The Slayer cult army list has a rule that says if your Slayer is killed by anything that is strength 5 or more, the Slayer player gets 10 victory points. A Troll Slayer is 11 points, and nearly every single thing in the Khorne army, except for Flesh Hounds, are strength 5. So for every Slayer you kill, you get 1 victory point, which means that you need to kill 16 Slayers for every dead Bloodletter. This is actually the only matchup I can think in the game that is impossible to win. The best result you will have is a draw.
Also fitting.
Very fitting, and it's I mean that weird rule for Slayers is like if you're ever at a tournament nowadays and you end up with this matchup, you just have to laugh through it. I mean, it's probably the only matchup I know in the game that is so ridiculously skewed at one way. I think it's hilarious, and not to mention that Demon Slayer characters can actually have 2 weird, what do you call them, Slayer things, and they kill bloodthirsters like nothing. It's just, I mean, they're so cool. So yeah, don't run a demonic Khorne legion into a Slayer cult army list because you will not have fun. It actually kind of just sounds like a waste of time. Unless you're possibly running, that whole 6 units of Flesh Hounds, and then you need to play the game so that you're only using the Flesh Hounds, and with Frenzy, have fun, enjoy it, try it out. My friend is planning on building a Slayer cult armor list. He's mentioned it anyway, so we figured we could try this, maybe even battle report it, and just try to. Is this possible to get a minor victory? I think not. Unless the Slayer player
however it goes, Khorne will be pleased because there is battle. Blood shall be flowing.
Skulls falling all over the place. So, yeah. In general, Khorne armor lists are awesome. You can learn to handle Frenzy. If you plan to play a Khorne Demonic Legion, read the Frenzy rules in the rulebook about 10 times and highlight the important sentences, because you need to know them like the back of your hand, because knowing them will actually make it easier to control Frenzy. Also, running a ton of units will make Frenzy not as dangerous because, you'll have so many backups. And once one unit charges into a bad thing, it has to overrun, which is horrible. And then you can use Flesh Hounds and stuff to run up and cover the flanks and kind of help around in that area. So, yeah. Flesh Hounds are the saviors of this list, along with maybe a unit of Furies if you can squeeze it in. I think that's all I have for Khorne. You feel like adding anything, Jimmy?
No, I'll ask a question later regarding Khorne. It's gonna be a question regarding all these lists, actually.
Okay.
It's gonna be on the modeling part.
Right. Since I'm a teacher, I ask you write down the question and save it for later so you don't forget it.
Yes.
Then we're moving on to my favorite. I know I'm not supposed to be biased, but Tzeentch, the love of my life. The Tzeentch Demonic Legion is just total magic mayhem. It is it's awesome. I can't wait to go through this. So let's get right into it. First off, we have the Lord of Change. The Lord of Change is a powerhouse. You want to take it in all Tzeentch lists above 2,000 points. Always. There's no reason to take the Demon Prince. Well, might be some reason. We're going to go through that a little later. But in general, the Lord of Change is so amazing. The demonic gifts alone on this thing makes it worthwhile. So let's open our Hordes of Chaos book and go through the Lord of Change stat line. Lord of Change comes in at 665 points. That's a lot. It's the most expensive of the 4 greater demons. But wait for it. It has 5 spells, and instead of 4, because it has Master of Sorcery, the demonic gift, which grants you 1 extra spell. It also has, with 5 spells, this is great, because the Lore of Tzeentch has 1 more spell than the other lores. It has a 0. Basically, it has 7 spells, so you can't roll the 0, but you can always choose it, which means you kind of always want to replace Yellow Fire, which is Yellow Fire doesn't really do a lot in Demonic Legion. We're gonna go through that afterwards, because there was an FAQ and it was all messed up, and you just always want to replace it with Red Fire, which is just a traditional magic missile, D6 hits with strength D6. But the Lord of Change has a movement of 6. Not really a big deal because it has fly. It has a weapon skill of 6, strength of 6, toughness of 6, wounds of 6, initiative of 10 for some reason. It's not really a fighter, but when you hear the stat line, it's a hell of a fighter.
Yeah.
It has 5 attacks, which is the least amount of attacks for the greater demons, because it has that extra spell instead. But the most important thing, well, not most important, a really important thing, is that it has unit strength 6, which means it's perfect for flank charges because it's a large target, it has fly, and it does not have frenzy. So breaking ranks is a big deal, because your units in a Tzeentch Demonic Legion will not be winning combats. So getting that thing in there and wave around with his staff, it's a big deal. But the most powerful ability this thing has is one of the most powerful abilities in the entire game. It has the demonic gift called Tzeentch's Will, which means allowing 1 reroll per turn. And this is not just one, this could be a part of a 2d6, 3d6, or a magic, you roll 5 dice, you can reroll 1 of them. And this is not only per turn, as in, turn 1 or turn 2, this is per player turn. And why this is a big deal?
Wow.
Because you can reroll your save. When you get hit by that cannonball and you fail the ward save, just reroll it. But the big deal is also you don't really need a greater icon, a BSB, in Tzeentch armies, because if you roll poorly on instability test, you can actually re-roll the highest dice. So this saves you a lot of points, which is why he's the most expensive of the greater demons, but he's sort of the cheapest.
You get a lot of rules for the points.
So many rules on the points. And in general, a large target is a bad thing, but because if you're not facing heavy artillery, it's a very good thing, because you can see over your own units. But now, it also has the demonic gift called Spell Destroyer. This is a spell breaker, but on a 4+, the opponent cannot cast the spell for the rest of the game. It destroys the spell. And this can be re-rolled with Tzeentch's Will. So if you're facing, that 2nd generation Slaanesh Mage Priest casting that Comet of Cassandora, you're like, I'm going to dispel scroll it, and then I'm going to 4+ with reroll, remove it from the game. Very powerful. It's 1 use only, of course, like all dispel scrolls, but it's so powerful.
Should I cry or laugh? I don't know. Listeners, you decide.
Exactly. And of course, we cannot talk about the Lord of Change without talking about the lore of Tzeentch. Because with the other armies, magic is a choice. Sure, the greater demons are level 4s, which is why we will go through them when we talk about the greater demons. But with Tzeentch, it's mandatory. You're spamming magic. That's what you're doing. Make no mistake, the Tzeentch Demonic Legion is a gun line. You're basically a elf or dwarf gun line. Well, more like elf, because, not that many high-strength targets, high-strength attacks. but it's a gun line. It's just in the magic phase. The lore of Tzeentch has 7 spells, and the first one is Red Fire. It's only 5+, causes d6 hits, strength d6. But the big kicker is that it's actually range 30, not range 24, as most other magic missiles are. So, and it's always random. I mean, the opponent is always like, yeah, it should be fine. Yeah, and then you roll 6 strength 6 hits. You know, it happens, and all of a sudden it turned into a horrible magic missile. And yeah, it's quite neat. But you don't even have to roll it. That's the good thing. You can always choose the worst spell in the lore and just replace it with a traditional magic missile. The next spell is Orange Fire, and this on a Lord of Change. Oh, hot mama! This is the thing, right? Because the sorcerer, or in this case, the Lord of Change, it's a remains in play spell. It gets him to reroll all failed rolls to hit, to wound, and all his saves.
Wow.
Yeah, and it remains in play. So, and that's a 6+. And all of a sudden, your 5 attack Lord of Change hits like a ton of bricks. And also, getting to reroll that save, really sweet when facing cannons. So that's a good one. Then we have Yellow Fire. This is going to be a bit. So Yellow Fire is remains in play spells, and it grants the sorcerer, his mount, and all models in the unit he joins a 5+ ward save. This replaces their demonic aura. In other words, for demons, it turns into a normal ward save. The demonic legion already has a normal ward save. So for the demonic legion, this actually turns. They FAQ'd this and said it did the same thing as Diabolic Splendor, which is you cast it on a unit and it gets +1 ward save, so 4+. But that's not what Diabolic Splendor says. Diabolic Splendor says that the sorcerer gets the demonic aura. In other words, if you cast it, for example, on a horror champion, only the champion gets the Diabolic Splendor. This was a bit of a discussion back in the days of 6th edition, that clearly it's meant to affect the whole unit. Yeah, most of the time you'll probably replace Yellow Fire with Red Fire anyway. But sure, I mean, having a Yellow Fire on a Lord of Change gives him 4+ ward save. Quite cool. I don't know. Is it possible to have 2 remains in play spells in play at the same time?
No, it's not, because once you cast another spell after a remains in play spell, that spell ends. You need to keep complete focus to keep your spell going.
Right. That explains. Yeah. So otherwise it would be quite neat with a 4+ ward save that is rerollable. But I mean, it is anyway, because you have Tzeentch Will on your Lord of Change. The next spell is Green Fire. Oh, this is so much fun. I would like you to imagine facing a unit of great swords across the table. And you target an unengaged enemy unit within 24 inches, and a subtle whisper in their minds suddenly persuades many warriors to change their allegiance and attack their comrades. All the models in the unit immediately make 1 attack against the unit itself. So you roll to hit, you roll to wound, you take saves, and if you kill enough, you actually cause panic tests. Characters who have joined the unit are unaffected. And if you're immune to psychology, you're also not affected. But I once cast this on a unit of 25 great swords, and they basically killed half of each other. So much fun.
I look forward to using this against the enemy. I do.
Especially when, I mean, just for those units, those great weapon wielding units. It's so much fun. It's only a 9+ to cast. And I say only 9+ because you're going to have about at least 10 power dice in this army list. At least. So the next one is Blue Fire. It's also magic missile, only range 12, but it causes 2d6 hits with a strength of d6 +1. That's quite a powerful spell. And it's also on a 9+. So that's an average of 7 hits and at least strength 2. But once you roll strength 3 or more, in other words, anything but a 1, it's actually quite a decent magic missile.
Yeah.
And for that single time you target a chariot and roll a 6, you just, laugh your ass off. But it's quite neat. Most people will try to dispel this because it's random, but it's not random enough that you want to let it through. Because 2d6 is better than 1d6, and d6 +1 is a heck of a difference from d6. So the next spell is Indigo Fire. This is an 11+, so it's quite hard to cast. But this is probably the best spell in the entire lore. At least when you're facing toughness 3 armies, like elves or men. It's a range 18, And all models in the enemy unit suffer strength 2 hits, so you wound on 5s versus suffer 3. All models killed turn into a horror, and the new horror models are placed in close combat to the front of the enemy in exactly the same formation as their former comrades, and the 2 units are lined up center to center. The newly created unit of horrors counts as charging in the close combat phase, and it does not award victory points. So, I mean, strength 2, I mean, if you cast this on a large unit of state troops or something, you're gonna have like 10 horrors, or at least 5 standing there in close combat, counts as charging, not awarding victory points. And we're gonna get to horrors later because they have spells, very powerful spells. This is an amazing spell.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's so cool. You need a lot of extra horrors though, because as usual in this edition, and in all editions, if you don't have the horror models, then they just count as destroyed. You can't replace them with you can't proxy your models. That's just wrong. Then you have the Violet Fire, 12 plus, target enemy character anywhere within 6 of the caster. In other words, you're basically just going to be casting this with the Lord of Change. But you can target a character even inside a unit or mounted on a monster steed. So you cannot hide from this. And the victim must pass a leadership test or be removed from play.
That's
so
nasty.
If you're running goblins, for example.
It's okay. I have plenty of goblin heroes. They're so cheap.
I thought you were going to say, it's okay, I have fanatics. I'll use them versus this demonic legion as well. It seems to work wonders.
It does, I know.
It does, because it's range 6 on this as well. So, I think many times in the game you will not be casting this spell. I mean, most of the time people pass their leadership tests and stuff, but every once in a while it's quite neat to get through. It can be a total game changer, and when it fails for the opponent, it hurts a lot. So that was basically the Lord of Change. Sorry that took so long. It takes a while to go through because we went through the entire lore as well, and it is just such a big deal. The next thing is the Demon Prince again. We've already gone through it a bit, but the only reason to really take this instead of the Lord of Change is because you need to crack armor and destroy knights. That's the one weakness of the Tzeentch army list, like Britannia or Empire Knight armies. Anything with a 1+ or 2+ save is quite annoying because there's so many attacks in this list, but there's often strength 3 or 4, so they don't break armor very well. So if you take the Demon Prince, you want it to have Master of Sorcery, of course, and be a level 4 wizard because you still want the spells, because you have the dice to cast it. But then you take Blade of the Ether, so it ignores armor saves, and most likely Soul Hunger. So you have your 5 attacks hitting on 3s with reroll, and then wounding on 2s. So you can kill quite a lot of knights with this. And also remember that Orange Fire, rerolling hits and wounds with this, is quite neat on a close combat oriented Demon Prince. So if you're having a lot of trouble in your meta with a lot of high armor or low armor, I don't know which one is the problem here. What is the wording? 2+ armor saves, let's just say that. Then you might want to take Demon Prince instead of a Lord of Change. But in all other cases, take the Lord of Change. The Exalted Demon is, of course, the mandatory under 2k here, general. Terror and Fly. Oh, we've already gone through that. It's amazing. I like to use this as a budget Demon Prince with just Master of Sorcery and Diabolic Splendor. So it has 4+ word save and it has 3 spells. And of course, you upgrade it so that it has level 2.
Nice.
It's a budget Demon Prince. It's quite expensive even at this point, but it does a lot for its points. As we said before,
it kinda does the same job, like you said.
Yeah, it's sort of the same job, but the important thing to remember with the Exalted Demons is that in lower point levels, the Terror and Flying combo gets stronger and stronger the lower you go in points.
Oh yeah.
I mean, for example, as we said, goblins is a good thing to talk about because you usually have a lot of units of goblins, but the lower points, the fewer units, and even worse, the fewer fanatics, and eventually the Terror Fly thing is very strong. Yeah, it's a mandatory. You can either keep it cheap and just run the Terror Fly thing, or you can upgrade it to a budget Demon Prince and have it wreak havoc among the enemy army. Next thing is the Herald of Tzeentch. A greater icon and master of sorcery is all right. You can keep it on foot in the unit of horrors or flamers. It clocks in at 235 points with those gifts. That's 100 points cheaper than the Exalted Demon above that we just talked about, plus a greater icon on top of that. It works at higher points, the Herald, but in general, as it cannot be the general of your army, you have to take an Exalted Demon anyway, and there goes the points. I don't think it's really worth taking a greater icon or a Herald in a Tzeentch army because you won't have enough units to benefit a lot from the icon. I've seen people talk about putting it on a chariot or a disc, but it's just that pumps up the points so far. So yeah, if you're playing 3,000 or 4,000 points, sure, rock on, but otherwise, yeah, no. It's just it can be targeted anywhere, and it's just way too. It easily goes to 400 plus points. So the Tzeentch Demonic Legion, you can actually look away from the Herald. Plays differently. It's a gun line, and you often run many small units instead of larger units. Which brings us to the backbone of the entire Tzeentch army, the Horrors. Horrors is a great unit, and the difference from the Hordes of Chaos Horrors is that their champions in this unit now become level 1 wizards, which means that they generate power dice. In addition to all the bound spells that Horrors have, which are also amazing. This means that, in my 2,000 point army of Tzeentch Demons, I run 3 units of 12 Horrors with a champion. No standard, no musician, just the champion. Actually, one of them is 11 because I was above. But yeah, they're great. Units of 12 with the champs are very sweet. I like to always just choose red fire for the champion because, the other spells are too hard to get off with only 2 dice to cast. So just an extra magic missile in there is quite sweet. But the horrors themselves have bound spells, 3 of them. And one of them is Fire of Tzeentch, which is a magic missile, range 24, d6 strength 3 hits. Just a traditional thing. And these are bound spells, and the power level is half the unit strength of the unit. This usually means 5 or 6, and that's quite high for a bound spell. And when you take magic items, many bound spells are power level 3 or 4. So the next one, Coruscation of Energy. This is why Indigo Fire is such a good spell. This is the most powerful bound spell I think I've seen on a unit, or in anywhere, especially since it's not a one-use only. And it doesn't matter how large the horror unit is. So if I cast Indigo Fire on your unit of greatswords and I kill 1, and I put a horror in front of your unit of greatswords, it's still my magic phase. The horror can now cast Coruscation of Energy. Bound spell is, 1, but if you don't have any dispel dice left, that doesn't matter. And this spell causes a strength 3 hit on every model in the unit. Large units, beware. It's also range 12. So, yeah, this is a very powerful spell. And it's range 12, quite short, but once the enemy gets into close combat, this is nasty, really nasty. The next one is the Uncontrollable Mutation. So you roll a dice for every horror in base-to-base contact with an enemy. On a 6, the enemy model is slain, and a horror is added to the unit. This is quite fun, especially versus smaller units that are charging in, like fast cab and such, because every model killed matters, and every horror added also matters. So it's quite a neat thing. But most of the time, you'll be using the magic missile, and of course, you want to get within 12 to cause a strength 3 hit on every model in the enemy unit. This is, again, very powerful versus toughness 3. Again, elves and humans. You might notice a trend here that Tzeentch Demons are very good versus toughness 3, and that is correct. They're also very good versus things like Wood Elves that have a lot of skirmishers, because spells don't care about rolling to hit. So the -1 to hit doesn't really matter. So that's the horrors. They are amazing. They die quite easily, though. They don't have a very impressive stat line. They will not be killing things. As I said before, they won't be winning combats. Their weapons heal 2 and movement of 4. Strength toughness 3, 1 attack, and yeah, they're not very impressive. So yeah, horrors, they die easily, but they can take so many things with them, and they can reproduce. This is sort of the whole thing, like creating horrors, it seems to me anyway, who's a big Old Hammer fan, to be a little nod to the old pink horror dice and becomes 2 blue horrors rule. Instead of adding that into the horrors themselves, they created it in the spell version that new horrors are created. So well done, Games Workshop.
It's a rule many of us miss, and it's a rule that many people who play later editions hate, especially Age of
It's
Sigmar
also
players. I've heard about it.
I started playing Demons in Ravening Hordes, and the reason I was 13 at the time, and the reason I couldn't play Tzeentch was because back in those days you had to ask your parents to buy the models for you because you don't have any money because you're a freaking kid.
Yeah.
And you can't really motivate your parents that no, I need 3 times as many because when they die they become 2. It's hard to motivate. So
Yeah.
I started playing these demons when the Hordes of Chaos came out. That's when you could afford it.
Although
Today it's very
yeah,
models is very affordable.
I mean you can mix pink and blue horrors in the same unit nowadays, model wise. In 6th edition, when they released these amazing Juan Diaz horrors, there was a little nod to the whole 2 blue horrors inside a pink horror thing, because in a lot of the models you can see there's like something trying to get out of there, and that's, depending on how you paint it, will be a blue horror. There's like small horrors crawling out of them. I love these models, but
Yeah, those
they're so
models are
hard to
really
come by.
gorgeous.
They're so hard to come
Yeah,
by, and I really hate that I
especially if you
didn't
want
get
them
my,
in metal.
yeah, I hate that I didn't get the chance to buy them when they were on Make to Order, because it was like right before payment. It's like, no, I can't afford this now. It's like
Really,
I get
they've
I
been
get
on made to order.
yeah, they have, along with the Juan
This-
Diaz. Yeah, it was like 2 years ago, I think, along with the Demonettes.
All right. Yeah, the horror. I mean, 6th edition demons were very beautiful in the sense that, like in many 6th edition models, they became almost they dropped the humor and comic relief of the older editions, and they sort of became gorgeous and beautiful and gross and I want to say realistic, even though it does make
Yeah,
sense. But yeah, they just became scarier. So yeah, the horror models are gorgeous, and just as you said, I mean, the mouths inside the mouths and the eyes inside the mouth. I mean, everything just bursting out is such gorgeous models. So yeah, that's also a little nod to the old days, or the
yes,
new days, because nowadays they split up again, or
yeah.
can anyway. But now it's a choice. I was funnier back in the day. Um, but yeah, the next thing, a big deal, Flamers of Tzeentch, which I'm sitting here in front of me with 8 of them. They actually are skirmishers. They're their own unit in this edition, so they're not no longer a unit that accompanies horrors, which they were in Hordes of Chaos. Now they became their own unit, and they are skirmishers, which of course is neat. They have 2 strength 4 attacks and weapon skill 2, and but the most important thing for them is that they actually have a movement of 6, which is quite fast, in general.
Yeah.
But they also have a ballistic skill of 4, and a ballistic skill of 4 is quite powerful when you're shooting as much as these things do. Flamers of Tzeentch have, of course, the rule called Flames of Tzeentch, which is that each flamer can fire magical firebolts in the shooting phase. They're a thrown weapon, range 8, strength 3, but each player fire d6 shots. So you roll to hit with each of them. So basically, if you have, like I have here, 8 flamers, I roll 8 dice and multiply that. I take 8 dice and see how many shots I get, and then I roll to hit for each of them. So you don't like roll 8 to hit rolls and then see how many hits it is. That was previous editions. This is more balanced. Now you have to roll to hit with each of them, and they're also flaming attacks, both in close combat and with shooting.
And I think with thrown weapons, you don't get any movement or range penalties. I think I need to get my rule book here.
Exactly. So they'll always be hitting on 3s.
Yeah.
Except for like skirmishers. But there's so many shots. That's the thing, right? There's so many shots that even versus skirmish units, you sort of wipe them out.
Yeah.
Skirmish units are often toughness 4-3, and toughness 3, and usually light armored. So yeah, they just die. They're 25 points each, and they only have 1 wound, so they're quite expensive. But you can run a small unit of 5 or 2 units of 5, and it can do quite well. So the fact that they're skirmishes is quite neat as well. It makes them a little more fun. So, but the next thing, of course, is that you can put these things on discs and play them as change bringers that we talked about in the opening segment. Um, Change bringers are flamers mounted on discs of Tzeentch, and the model is mounted on a 50 millimeter square base. These guys are sort of like flamers, but for 3 times the cost. But they're also more than 3 times the durability and the movement because except Tzeentch, they're flying cavalry, but they move 15 inches instead of 20 because they have the rule float, which is like, yeah, they don't really fly, they just sort of float, um, like Pennywise. But they still shoot the same, but there's only one flamer on each disc, of course. So these guys are movement 1, so beware of that storm banner, and weapon skill 3, ability skill 4, strength 4. But here comes the kicker: toughness 5, 3 wounds, 3 attacks, and initiative 4. So they can actually charge and do damage. And I mean,
Yeah,
they're flying cavalry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
I
something?
think they're more dangerous in combat than shooting, actually. But being able to use
Yeah,
both shooting and firing that's a big game changer. And being like, since they are flying or floaters, they still move in skirmish formation, so they have 360 degrees vision.
exactly.
Yeah.
They do that. They see 360 and they charge 15 inches. So they're quite cool in that sense, and they can still shoot 3d6 shots. So if you try to land a small flying skirmish unit or like a unit of furies or harpies to march block and stuff, they can just shoot them out or charge them out, because they can charge to 3d60 and 15 inches. And the real important thing, they are large targets for line of sight purposes, but only for line of sight purposes, which means they only get the benefits of large target and none of the bad things, which means that they can cover a Lord of Change from line of sight. This is very sweet.
Yes.
Run 2 units of 3 at 2,000 points. I really enjoy them. I think they're really cool. But again, they can charge. They're 210 points for 3 of them. They're 70 points each, so they're quite expensive. And beware, as with all demonic cavalry, beware of killing blow. They'll just wipe them out. They're quite expensive. You might want to, if you take them, you might not want to take flamers. Sort of have to choose between them because the points are starting to run away from you here. Because you want a lot of horror units as well. At least 3 of them. You need at least 3 of them. Well, need anyway. You can have flamers, but you want 3 of them at least. So points are starting to run off. The next unit is Screamers. Screamers are very good. Every single Chaos army, regardless of warriors, beasts, or demons, should have a unit of 3 to 5 Screamers always. Because, I mean, they have fly, they have 2 wounds, they have 2 attacks, strength 4, weapon skill 3. They can slash attack, which means they can fly over something and cost strength 3 hit on the unit, and it counts as missiles, and the enemy cannot fight back versus that. It's not. I mean, that's not why you take them, but it's quite. It's a neat ability for those characters running along by themselves outside the units. Every Tzeentch army should have at least 1 unit of these. They're very good. I don't have anything bad to say about them. They're cheap. They're 99 points for a unit of 3, and a unit of 3 has a unit strength of 6 because they're 2 each. And if you have a unit strength of 6 and you fly and you cause fear and you charge war machines, you sort of either run from the charge or die to the charge. So they're very good for hunting those cannons that, what do you say, that are shooting your Lord of Change.
Yeah.
They also have a toughness of 4 as well. I mean, and 2 wounds. They're quite resilient. I mean, they're for the points, they're very good. They're also skirmishers because they're a flying unit.
They're still 0 to 1, right, in the demonic list, or are they? Let me see here.
Oh, they're not.
Oh, so you can have multiple units in a legion list. Nice.
And they're core units. So,
Oh.
yeah, go nuts. This could open up for the traditional 40k army list that I used to run back in the days of 6th edition 40k, where you run like 27 screamers, 3 units of 9 because it's awesome. but then they actually do quite a bit of damage when they fly over things as well. So yeah, you can do that. But then the points start running away. We're talking 300 points for a unit, 900 points for 27 of them. So you won't get a lot of other stuff into the army. And the funny thing is, a unit of 3 charge Skaven or goblins and just watch them run from the charge. It's just so much fun.
No.
Sometimes, most of the time, you even catch them because you move 20, so you run them down. It's just a lot of fun. The last rare unit, the last choice of the Tzeentch Demonic Legion is the Chariot of Tzeentch. These are freaking amaze balls. I mean, they shoot like Changebringers, but they fly. They don't have float. They fly. And they have impact hits and screamer attacks in melee. So, I mean, 140 points. On top of it is 2 flamers, which means we're already up into the same cost as 2 Changebringers. But you also get 2 screamers in the same price. You get impact hits. You get fly instead of float. And, I mean, you get an armor save of 5+ as well. So this is quite a neat thing. They only have a unit strength 3, so they won't break ranks. But that's fine. Because what you do with this thing is that you fly it up, turn 1, hide it. Turn 2, fly it over the enemy army and line up those rear charges. Because when you have Changebringers charging from the front, or even a Lord of Change from the front, and a chariot in the back, yeah, you're going to be winning combats. This is nasty. And they're only 140 points. They're freaking free. And that's, the Tzeentch way the demon way of saying free. If anything costs
I mean,
points, it's free. But yeah, very good. And since Greater Demons do not take up a rare choice in this list, you can run 2 of them at 2,000 points along with the Lord of Change. Funny thing is that they are not large targets.
Oh.
Yeah, the only chariots that are large targets are the Khorne and Nurgle ones. The Slaanesh and Tzeentch are not large targets. Even though they're on discs like the Changebringers, they're not large targets. I mean, this is, of course, both good and bad. I mean, if it was large target, it could charge over units because it has fly. So I guess that's why they don't, because it would be too good, I guess. But yeah, I mean, when they charge in, they have 8 strength 4 attacks along with the D6 plus 4 D6 strength 4 impact hits.
Wow.
Sure. They hit most things. They hit most things on these. Of course, because the weapon skill is quite poor. But still, quite a number of attacks for 140 points.
That's a very good chariot, so to say.
Very good chariot, definitely. The formation of the Tzeentch Demonic Legion is that it's a mobile gun line with a shit ton of power dice. My 2,000 point armor list has 9 power dice plus 3 bound spells at power level 6. So a good thing to remember is that if you get into close combat too early in the game, like turn 2 or 3, you will probably start to take losses very quickly. So imagine you playing Wood Elves. That's kind of what you're doing. Just running around. It's a mobile gun line. You're shooting things. And if you face fast moving 2+ saves, you will most likely lose. Gonna be a rough match. Britannia are horrible for these armies.
Thank God I'm building a Britannia army slowly.
Very slowly. Build it slower. Build it slower, Jimmy.
Brother, spoke the 4 as one, together we shall rule, surrender to the darkness within your heart holds true. In his hand the sword of Cain did promise power untold, as god of light and god of murder battled for his soul. One by one the demons fell. An elf lord he stood tall. For should he fail upon his task then mortal world would fall. Upon the isle beneath the fight, wise mages cast their spells. And Daemon minions howled in anguish, cursed to eternal hell. And on this day we bow our heads to he who world did save, Enarion the proud defender, Enarion the ever brave.
We move on to the third of the gods. I mean, I'm quite a biased here when it comes to Nurgle because, like, I think we're gonna go through this. Yeah, you gotta notice. The Nurgle is like the list of resilient resilience. It's the best thing about this entire army is cloud of freaking flies. It's so good, it's almost boring. Cloud of Flies is one of the best abilities ever, and we're going to go through why. But first, we're going to start off with the big nasty, the great unclean one. This thing has 10 wounds. 10 wounds! It's the only thing in the game that has 10 wounds. And on top of this, it has weapon skill 8 with Cloud of Flies. Cloud of Flies means you're at -1 to hit in close combat if you're in base to base with something with Cloud of Flies. So if you're weapon skill 8 with Cloud of Flies, most things are hitting on 5s, and if you're weapon skill 3, you're hitting on 6s.
Ouch.
There's nothing in the game, I think, that's harder to kill than the Great Unclean One. The Great Unclean One is so good.
I'm happy that it's slow, but damn, once you get into it, it's gonna be hard to take it down. I mean, even war machines are
Yeah.
gonna have a bad time taking this down.
Yeah, I mean, even with a movement of 4, I mean, it still moves 8 inches a turn, which is
Yeah.
not very far. But if you're not moving forward towards a Nurgle army, I mean, eventually, if you're not playing like, I don't know, Wood Elves or something that can just avoid getting into close combat eventually, you have to get in there sooner or later. And this thing is going to be alive when you do, because you're not going to put 10 wounds into it easily.
Nope.
It's also a level 4 wizard. It has Terror and Large Target and Demonic and all those. It has Cloud of Flies, and then it has Stream of Corruption, which is a breath weapon with strength 3 and -2 armor save. So even if it just walks around, you have to stay 16 inches away, no, 12 inches away from it to be out of Stream of Corruption range. So yeah, this thing is just an awesome general for a Legion of Nurgle. So good, so good. And we're going to go through the spells in a bit, but overall, it has a weapon skill of 8, strength toughness 6, 10 wounds, and 6 attacks at initiative 4. This is the only greater demon that does not have initiative 10 because, it's a big fat tub of lard.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't. But it's just so good, so good. And it's 600 points as well. It's quite cheap for a greater demon. Now, for the Demon Prince, it makes it a lot more resilient to be a Nurgle because it gets an extra wound. So it goes up to 5 wounds instead of 4. That actually does a lot. But the difference is that the Demon Prince has Fly, which is in a Nurgle list. It adds speed and sort of like a finesse to an otherwise pretty slow, grindy army. It also has initiative 8, which is ridiculously fast. And you can give it the demonic gift Stream of Corruption. So you have move 20, flame template, with -2 armor save. It can hunt war machines, skirmishers, even knights with the -2 save with that thing. So yeah, it gives you a lot of speed and finesse, and it works. You probably don't want to upgrade it to a wizard because it's just too expensive. Because Nurgle spells aren't really needed if you run the Demon Prince, because it can have the Blade of the Ether, so it ignores armor saves. Otherwise, yeah. I'm gonna go through the spells in a bit because the Demonic Legion of Nurgle has sort of the same trouble like the Tzeentch armor list. If you have fast moving, and not even fast moving, if you have 2+ armor saves or something, they're gonna have trouble with this. Unless, of course, their entire lore of magic was dedicated to ignoring armor saves. So first you look at it, it's like, oh, you only have strength 4 all over the place. It's like, yes, but so many spells ignore armor saves. First of all, I mean, they have 6 spells in their lore. And the first one is a magic missile called Bobos. Bobos. How do you pronounce that?
I think it's Bubos. I'm not sure.
Bubos.
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 Barbosa.
Barbosa, that's the one. Barbara. You pick a single enemy model within line of sight, 18 inches. Character in a unit, war machine, crew member, anything. Toughness test or suffer 1 wound, no armor save. Yeah, this is all right. It's not very good. It's very good versus battle standard bearers, especially if they have toughness 3. That's quite good. But then we have a spell called Poxus. It remains in play. It's a 7+ to cast. And you choose an enemy unit within 18 inches, and the entire unit reduces its weapon skill, strength, and leadership by 1. And it's a remains in play spell. So you get minus in everything. And minus, the most important thing here is minus in weapon skill, because Cloud of Flies. This whole stacking thing is nasty. The next one is Boils, a magic missile, 8+, line of sight, 24 inches. No, actually, it's not a magic missile.
Oh,
Target 1 enemy unit within line of sight and 24 inches of the sorcerer.
So it's better. Wow.
It's better. Yeah, and it costs D6, strength 4 hits with no armor saves. So, and the next one, Scabs. Oh, this is great. 9+, pick a single character within line of sight. You can even single them out in a unit. The model reduces his toughness by 1 for the remainder of the game. This is not remains in play. It just, you get -1 toughness for the rest of the game.
Wow. Thanks. Making everyone as weak as an elf.
Yeah, and you don't have to take a toughness test either. It just happens. If you pass the casting roll, you get -1 toughness. If you're a monster, this really, really hurts.
Yes.
The next spell is Afflictions. which is quite cool. You cast it on the battlefield. There's no range. You pick one enemy unit on the battlefield that is not in close combat. Unlimited range, no line of sight. And that it remains in play. While the spell remains, the unit halves its movement value. If the unit is mounted, then the movement value of the mount is halved. Flying creatures, big thing here, may only use their ground movement, but they do not half their ground movement.
Oh, and some flyers have very bad ground movement. Very bad.
Like we just talked about with the Tzeentch demonic legion, the chariots and the changebringers will be moving 1 inch. Same with the screamers, if I recall correctly. I think they're all 1 inch. Yeah, screamers are 1 inch. So it's horrible. The next spell is probably the best spell in the game, at least one of them. It's an 11+. It's called Pestilence, for good reason. You cast this spell on a single enemy unit within 24 inches and line of sight. It's not remains in play, but you're effective for the rest of the battle, unless it's dispelled when cast. At the start of each magic phase, both the Chaos players and opponents, the affected units suffer D6 Strength 3 hits with the armor saves allowed. This is unbelievably powerful. 24 inches, you can basically cast this turn 1, and a unit will just wither and die through the course of the game.
This is Curse of the Years all over again.
It's basically Curse of Years, except that it's not remains in play. You can't get rid of it. You have to save your magic dice to dispel this every turn. Yeah, the Lords of Magic Nurgle are great. If you have a Great Unclean one, this is very nice because you don't ignore armor saves with him. But if you have a Demon Prince, you can just take Blade of the Ether and save those 160 points of magic levels and put them into something else, like more units. The Exalted Demon is probably the best of all Exalted Demons because it has 4 wounds instead of 3. That's a 33% increase in survivability right there, just straight up. It's a great general for armies under 2,000 points. And yeah, you basically just either take Blade of the Ether if you're facing knights or something else. Spellbreaker is neat if you're not running magic. So, but then we move on to the Herald. The Herald is probably the most important for Nurgle armies. Nurgle armies like to play long, grindy fights, and having that reroll on the instability test is almost like a necessity. Also, the Herald of Nurgle has 3 wounds. That's a 50% increase in survivability just for the Mark of Nurgle. And a greater icon and Spellbreaker with a War Banner. It does so much stuff. You don't even, it doesn't need Cloud of Flies. It doesn't have Cloud of Flies. It doesn't get it because Mark of Nurgle doesn't grant it. But it doesn't need it because you're standing next to Plague Bearers and they have it. The Herald is a must. You need to take this if you're playing Nurgle Demonic Legions. You do not want your 9 wound Great Unclean one to go poof and disappear into the realm of chaos again. Yeah. Herald, take it. Always give it a greater icon. Always.
Remember, sharing is caring in Nurgle armies.
Definitely is. So they share everything, like clouds of flies. Plague Bearers are the true core, the backbone, probably the most resilient core unit in the whole game. They are weapon skill 4, and they have Cloud of Flies. Almost every single core unit in the game will be hitting these guys on 5s. On top of that, you want to run a bigger unit with unholy icons so you get the 4+ ward save because you are in it for the grind. This is a grindy army. They also auto-hit in melee because they can puke. And this is puking, not like trolls, but they auto-hit with strength 3. And this is where there was a bit of discussion, actually, back in the days. And probably still is, but I think it's pretty straightforward. In general, Stream of Corruptions says that playbearers may choose to vomit forth a grotesque spew of entrails, maggots, and filth. They basically sneeze at you. This is resolved differently to the demonic gift with the same name, because this is also called Stream of Corruption. Not very well done by Games Workshop. They could have just given, Plague Vomit or something. But is used in close combat instead of making normal attacks and allows the Plague Bearers to hit their opponents automatically and attacks to resolve the strength 3. All models in the unit must use the same kind of attack in a single combat round, although they may change their attack from round to round. This means that they will auto-hit on strength 3 instead of hitting on strength 4 as they usually do. It also means the champion gets to puke twice because it has 2 attacks. And it doesn't say that your attacks go down to 1 like it does with Troll Vomit. So the champion actually gets to puke twice. I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to be. I know that the guy who won the Grand Tournament many years ago, he played it like that, and he just thought, That's how it was supposed to be because it didn't say any different, and no one told him otherwise at the Grand Tournament. But there was a bit of a discussion. But since it doesn't actually say that you replace your normal attacks with this and you only get one, it seems to be that the champion gets to puke twice. But in general, you always puke. Always, always, always puke. The only times you do not puke is versus toughness 5 opponents, where your puke wounds on 6s, and if you're facing toughness 4 opponents with weapon skill 3, then you also don't puke. I don't know how many there are that are weapon skill 3 and toughness 4. I think it's only like ogres.
Orcs. Don't forget orcs.
That's true. Orcs, yeah, orcs only have weapon skill 3. I thought they had 4.
No, that's big guns and black orcs.
Oh, the big guns. All right, yeah. The big guns have the weapon skill 4. Yeah, so basically versus normal orcs and ogres, you don't puke because then you'll be hitting on 3s and winning on 4s instead of just winning on 5s. And statistically, that's better. I have the whole list of statistics, like for all, if you want to, but it's basically puke every time except versus these two things. It's always better. Auto hitting is very strong because you can never hit on 2+ in this game. Almost never, unless you have some sort of magic item or spell. Because you can wound on 2+, but hitting only goes to 3+. So auto hitting is very strong. And then we move on to the most cute of all the demons in the world. They're so cute. Nurglings. Nurglings.
Oh, the little demon mites.
Yeah, they're so pretty. They're like Nurgle's little children. And they're not just, cute and pretty and adorable. They're also unbelievably powerful. It's like power in disguise. 4 attacks per base, and you can get 4 bases hitting a regular 4-ranked unit. That's 16 attacks hitting on, weapon skill 3, strength 3, 4+4+, which is all right because, 16 attacks. But the real kicker, they're a swarm, and they have weapon skill 3, and they have Cloud of Flies. So the opponent
kind of like, yeah. No, they won't. It's kind of like rat swarms. They also have weapon skill 3, but they have worse strength and toughness, all right. But still, they're also skirmishers. But these guys also have the ward save, right?
They have the ward save, and they have the Cloud of Flies, and they're also skirmishers.
Ouch! Ouch!
And since you most of the time, if you're facing 4 bases of Nurglings with a regular, let's say, core unit, or even a special is, like a sword masters or something, like an elite unit, you will not kill them, and they don't lose attacks because you won't remove the bases. So they always get their 16 attacks, and eventually you will, kill 1 base, but they will actually reduce your number of attacks with all the attacks they do. But they're, they hit last unless they're facing great weapons. They're very good versus things like great swords, or great weapon toughness 3 things that strike, because if they strike last, they will lose attacks, and they're usually just hitting on 5s anyway. Elite units will hit on 4s, but that's not very good because you only have 5 attacks, maybe 6 if you're standing 5 wide. That's not a lot. You have 5 attacks and you hit on 3s. That's 3 hits, 3 points something. And you you hit on 4s because of the Cloud of Flies. So that's 2.5 hits. And then you wound on 2s, let's say, because, you're, Swordmasters again. I usually take them as an carry as freaking flank. And they wound on 2s. So let's say you wound 3, but then you have 5+ ward save against this. And so you save 1. So even Swordmasters, which is like one of the most elite unit out there for hitting things, they only kill 1 base every other turn. And this is, for the points, Nurglings are so powerful. They're 50 points each. No, 40 points even. They were reduced in this edition. They were 40 points each. So and you can run 1 to 5, and they're 0 to 1 in a Hordes of Chaos army list. But in the Demonic Legion, you can run as many as you like because you have to take 1 for each Plague Bearer unit anyway because of the True Core rule. But they are so good. You usually want at least 1 unit, maybe 2 even. The next unit is Plague Riders. Plague Riders are Plague Bearers on top of Beasts of Nurgle. Beasts of Nurgle are sort of new. They were released in the Storm of Chaos book. So they never existed before the Demonic Legion in this edition. Well, that's not true, actually. They existed not in the Hordes of Chaos book. And now they were re-released, so to speak. They were in the Ravening Hordes list, along with the annual 2002 Demonic Army list as well. But these things, I don't know. I would always take 2 units. They are probably the best of all the cavalry options that we have in the Demonic Legion. Their movement 6. Movement 6 is very fast for Nurgle, and their weapon skill 4. Just because they're plague bearers, right? Strength 4 like plague bearers, but because they're on Demon Beast of Nurgle, their toughness 5, and they have 3 wounds and it's initiative 3. The big deal with these, they're 80 points. The big deal with these is that they have D6 plus 2 attacks. In other words, the Demon Beasts themselves have D6 plus 1, and then they incorporate the Plague Bearer attack into that, but they do it on the same profile. So the Plague Bearer attack also benefits from the big deal, poison attacks on this unit. So a unit of 3 of these gets an average of 16 attacks. They auto wound on 6s. They also have weapon skill 4 and Cloud of Flies and toughness 5. So I mean, yeah, you probably won't kill them. I remember back when we were kids, my friend played Nurgle Demonic Legion and I played Slaanesh. Oh my god, how me and my friends hated the Plague Riders. Because, 9 wounds with toughness 5 and 5 plus ward save, with Cloud of Flies and weapon skill 4, they just don't die. They never do, They're extremely resilient, durable, and for Nurgle, fast, movement 6, ton of attacks, poison, which is, God-given, quite literally.
Yeah.
Most 2K armies will probably want to run 2x3 of these, or at least 1 unit of 4. Yeah, as long as you're not facing Killing Blow, you will not die. You will notice that Killing Blow is a weakness for all the special units, and that's true. So Grave Guards are very, very scary, all Demonic Legion. But in general, Undead aren't that scary because they can't use their strongest strength, which is Fear. So, yeah. And you also have magic attacks on the entire army because they're demonic, so yeah. Counts was usually quite a good match for Demonic Legion. Next one is, of course, the Chariot of Nurgle. It's gruesomely awesome, model-wise, anyway. Because they're a chariot pulled by a Demon Beast of Nurgle, and you can add another Demon Beast. So they're 150 points, and for 30 points you can add another, which you always do, because they hit like a train, man. If you get the charge into a unit, it's 12 inches. I mean, they have movement 6. It can happen. You will most likely decimate that unit almost completely, because you get D6 strength 5 impact hits, 2d6 plus 2 poison attacks, and then another 2 attacks from the Plague Bearers. They can also vomit. The deal with this chariot is also that, like the Khorne chariot, it has unit strength of 5, so it'll break ranks. But if you run them pulled by 2 demon beasts, this goes for Khorne and Nurgle, because they can have 2 mounts pulling it. They actually get rebased on 100 times 100 base instead of 50 times 100, which makes them they can be a little hard to maneuver, the army. So quite long wheels and such because of the width. But yeah, this thing is awesome. If it's a large target, it has Cloud of Flies, it has 5 wounds, 5 plus armor save, 5 plus ward save. It's awesome. The big thing about the Demon Beast of Nurgle is that you roll 1d6 for each Beast of Nurgle to see how many attacks it has. In later editions, they changed this so you roll 1d6 and then you multiply it by the number of models, but that's not how you did it here. At the start of every close combat phase, you just roll a d6 and see how many attacks each have. Well, this is a lot better because it evens out. You can sort of count on it more. But yeah, it's very, very good. In summation of the Nurgle Demon Army, it's like there's like nothing bad there. It's probably one of the top tier armies of 6th edition. It's so hard to kill that it nearly always won the grind. If the opponent did the mistake of charging into you, you probably won. But there aren't a lot of high strength attacks, so if you have a very good armor, you can do well, unless they have a lot of magic that ignores armor. So it's a very strong army. There's a reason I don't own that Demonic Legion anymore, because I actually thought they were too boring to play because they were just too good. Probably rather just play it with Hordes of Chaos, and then it's a little more balanced.
I agree.
Let's move on to the Dark Prince of Chaos, the greased lightning of the demonic gods, because Slaanesh is the army looking at Tzeentch demonic legions going like, oh, that's cute. Are you trying to be fast? Because this is the fastest army in the game. There's nothing that comes even close to this. This is also why it's a lot of fun to play, which is why I played it back in the day. I played it for many years through many editions. Slaanesh demon armies are always fun because they're so fast. And anyone who has played 6th edition for a long time knows that movement is what wins you games. The movement phase, that's where you win. If you know your movement, you will most likely do very well in a game and in a tournament. And if you have movement of 10, like most Slaanesh things do, you cannot really be bad at movement. At least not. It's easier anyway. So let's start with the big Kipper. The Keeper's Secrets. Movement 8, weapon skill 9, strength, toughness, and wounds 6, attack 6, initiative 10, and leadership 9, which goes to 10 in the Demonic Legion. It's 625 points, level 4 wizard from Lore of Slaanesh. The Lore of Slaanesh, I know that you guys went through the lores a bit when you did the warriors.
We just touched a few spells for like cavalry-based armies, which are good for them.
Yeah. And then of course I think where you guys talked about this on the last episode, or maybe the previous one before that, where the Slaanesh lore is very, very powerful when it comes to controlling movement.
Yes.
And this is also what makes it fun, for you and not so much for your opponent.
Exactly.
But anyway, Keeper Secrets, level 4 wizard, large target, terror, and all that stuff, all that jazz. It has Soporific Musk, which is that any enemy in base contact with a demon with this gift, half their weapon skill and initiative.
Bye, Swordmasters.
Exactly. This means that in close combat, there are 2 things in the game that hit a Keeper's Secrets on 4s. Everything else hits on 5s. We've already talked about those 2, which is the Bloodthirster and the Blood Dragon Vampire Lord, because they have weapon skill 10. So if you weapon skill 9 and you half all your opponent's weapon skills, yeah, they're not going to be hitting you easily. I've actually had the Keeper of Secrets kill a Great Unclean One in the challenge over the course of a game, because the Great Unclean One can't hit it. So even if it has 10 wounds, the Keeper of Secrets sort of grinds it down. It also has the Aura of Slaanesh, which is, of course, that if you're in base contact with an enemy unit with this gift, you get -1 leadership. Also quite fun in the specific challenge versus the Great Unclean One, because you actually force it to take an instability test every turn because you win the combat every turn. So, yeah, it's kind of fun. In general, it's expensive. 625 points is a lot. The Slaanesh spells, controlling movements. The base spell that you can choose is a magic missile with 12-inch range, D6 strength 6 hits. This is very strong for a base spell that you can choose. Even with 12-inch range, it's like, yeah, that's short. It's not really short, not for a Slaanesh army, because everything moves like 8 to 20 inches. So 12-inch range is like, it's like having a 24-inch range for Slaanesh. The other spell, the second one, you can force enemy unit to become frenzied. So you choose actually even a friendly unit as well, a friend or foe, within 24, and the unit becomes subject to frenzy until defeated in combat. And of course, this means that you cast it on your opponent, and you fly something up there or move something up there and force them to charge it. Force them to charge into your 18 unit of demonettes or something like that. It's also suffers D6 strength 3 hits every time. At the start of each turn, both player turns. And this is not a remains in play. You can't dispel it. You have to lose combat to get rid of it. Ventilating delusions. Yeah, you guys have spoken about that. Mark a point on the tabletop, and in the remaining parts of the movement phase, the affected unit must move directly and quickly as possible towards that point. Will charge and fight any enemy unit that lies along the line of advance. I've used this so many times versus Chaos Knights to make them march move and then charge them with the Keeper of Secrets in the next turn. Versus Empire Knights.
Ouch.
Generally, very good versus cavalry, because they just run away from the rest of their army into your charge range. It's tasty. Detectable torture you cast on an unengaged enemy character within 24 inches. He will attack the unit he's with. Yeah, that's fine. It's okay. Not very good for 9+ cast.
Also depends on what kind of army you face. I mean, like if you face blood dragons, of course you want to cast it, because they're gonna slay their units. Same way if you face Khorne units. But otherwise, like you say, 9+ it's not gonna do a lot.
It's not, yeah, exactly. But you are very correct. Yeah, casting out on a Chaos Lord of Khorne in a unit, yeah, he will basically kill his own unit by himself. So yeah, there are situations where this is very strong, but it's quite expensive, and in many matchups it won't do a lot. But ironically, versus Chaos is very, very good. Enrapturing Spasms, another one of the best in the game things. You cast it on an enemy unit within 18 inches, even if it's in combat. It cannot move in the movement phase, cannot shoot, attack in close combat, or cast spells, nor maintain remaining play spells, which will be immediately dispelled. They're hit automatically in close combat. The target unit is also immune to psychology as long as the spell is in play, but they take break tests as normal, will flee force 2. Doesn't work on immune to psychology, but this is probably, I mean, you basically make an enemy unit completely stationary and auto hit, can't fight. It just stands there and takes saves. So good, and it's only on the 10+. So well worth throwing 5 dice at this, at least 4 anyway. This off, so good. The next spell is one that's very strong for demons specifically. It's a remains in play spell. You cast it on a friendly or an enemy unit. The unit becomes unbreakable, which replaces instability for demons. Which means that if you have the that unit of demonettes, you can actually make it unbreakable, which means it will grind a lot of opponents down.
Oh yeah.
Because they
Also
fight,
very the second use for this spell is throwing it on screening fast cavalry enemy units so that they can't flee as a charge reaction. Very important.
Very important. Especially
yeah.
when you're charging them with like movement 10 things, because you want to charge far, and if they can't run away, then that's where you are. Then you move up the board and they lose a unit. This is quite fun. I love that you can cast it on an enemy as well, and it also works on enemies that are already immune to psychology compared to the enrapturing spasms. So yeah, that's sort of the Keeper Secrets. He's expensive, but he's quite cool, and the rule of cool is the way to go, of course. But the real winner of the Slaanesh army, Demonic Legion, is the Demon Prince. The Demon Prince is probably a better choice than the Keeper's Secret in 99% of the cases, because of one thing: it gets always strike first. This is probably one of the most powerful rules in 6th edition, because it was very rare. In 7th edition, the entire High Elf army got always strike first, and it became sort of like, a thing. But in 6th edition, it's very rare. And when you have a Demon Prince with always strike first, that has Blade of the Ether and Soul Hunger, means that I once flew my Demon Prince of Slaanesh in front of an entire Bretonnian lance, a Grail Knight lance. And I said, yeah, go ahead, charge me. He did, and then I killed 5 knights, and he didn't get to hit back, and, well, everything else. I just ran them down. Because when you strike first, and you ignore armor saves, and you reroll to hit, and you have weapon skill 8, hitting on 3s with a reroll, wounding on 2s, versus all knights out there, almost. I mean, you're killing 4 to 5 knights every turn, and you hit before they do, which means they barely get to hit back. Usually you take a champion to the face. Who cares? Probably won't hit anyway. So, I mean, the Demon Prince is the way to go. This is a monster. And the always strike first thing is so powerful, because in 6th edition, when you charge, you strike first, even if you have great weapons, unless the opponent has the rule always strike first. This is. I mean, I would take this thing and no magic levels, keep him trimmed. 420 points with Soul Hunger, Blade of the Ether, probably Spellbreaker, so you get that scroll in there, and you can use all other points for units. This is one kind of build for Slaanesh. This is actually the only Demonic Legion where I would even consider running a Demon Prince and an Exalted Demon, because they also get always strike first and can have Blade of the Ether, so they can both sort of do the same thing. And they become sort of these Bash Bros team, like in Mighty Ducks, and they just kill everything. Very, very good. But that's very expensive. So the Exalted Demon, you might not want to take that in there. If you do run large infantry units, I don't specifically. When I run a Slaanesh Legion, I prefer to run 10-man units of Demonettes, just to fill up those core choices and run around. To max out on Pleasure Seekers and such. But if you do run large infantry units, which is quite common with Slaanesh, 3 times 18 Demonettes is quite standard. It's very good. You run them 6 wide. It's very good. Then you definitely want a Herald, and you want the Icon. Like I do, you don't need the Herald, because everything will be out of 12-inch range, and mounting the Herald isn't an option. It just dies. Never put the Herald on a mount, ever. Always keep it on foot. Always keep it in a unit. Unless you're playing Khorne, keep it outside the unit. So, yeah, if you run infantry a lot, run the Herald. If you don't take it. It's better to invest more points in other things. Demonettes are quite wicked for their point cost. They are quite good. Demonettes are 15 points. Their movement 5, so quite fast for infantry. Strength 4, also a big deal. Weapon skill 4, strength 4, initiative 5, and 2 attacks. They only have a toughness of 3 because they're, tiny. But they hit very hard, and they hit fast, and they have a lot of attacks. And they also have the aura of Slaanesh, which means that you get the -1 save. -1 leadership if you're base to base with them. So if you're running the 18 units, you often outnumber your opponent and cause them to auto break if they lose. And if they don't auto break, they still get the -1 leadership. So yeah, they work in all sizes from 10 to 18, depending on what style of army you play. And when you win those combats by like 1, that aura of Slaanesh is really going to kick in. So they don't like shooting because they're toughness 3 and they don't have an armor save. They only have the 5+ ward save, so they really die quite quickly to shooting, especially like bow and arrows. Elves are very good at shooting demonettes. The demonettes can sit on their small horses. This is also a new thing for the Demonic Legion. The mounted demonettes. In later editions, these were called Seekers, which is quite confusing because the special unit in this edition is called Seekers, Pleasure Seekers. So the mounted demonettes. They're basically demonettes on a 10-inch move mount that also has 1 attack, but it has always strike first on that tongue. It basically licks your opponent in the face with poison attack and always strike first. This means that you can actually get charged. If you have like a 5 fast cav, they're fast cavalry and they're movement 10. Probably the fastest fast cavalry in the game, I think. I don't think anything else has moved 10 other than Slaanesh.
No, that's correct because elven steeds have movement 9, so these are the fastest cavalry in the game.
They are the fastest of all, and they are quite cool. They're 30 points each, so a unit is only 150 points, and they're ridiculously fast for that point cost. They have initiative 5, always strike first on the mounts, and 5 attacks from the mounts that usually cost us a wound or 2 before the opponent that charged even hit you. So that removes an attack or 2. And you have weapon skill 4, they'll be hitting on 4s. So you can often take a charge with just like a 5-man fast cav unit from, not of course combat units, but in general, smaller things. And that's more than most fast cavalry units can actually say. They flee from charges for a reason. Because if they stay, they need to know that, either you die, but you keep the opponent in place, or you run away and you force them to go somewhere bad. But demonettes can actually take a charge to the face and hold their own all right, because they won't all die to the instability test. They probably lose combat because of ranks and stuff, but they will not all die to the instability, especially if you have a reroll, which means they'll stay in place. And that's quite neat. They're all right. And they're also, movement 10 means you charge 20 inches and you break ranks because you use strength 2 per model. Sometimes you would like to run 5 of these and you run them 3 wide and 2 in the back because they become sort of like small arrows that can just flank charge things or even rear charge things and just remove those ranks and get that bonus into your demonette fights. Very good. Unit or 2 I would take always. The next one is I always take 3 of these units. 3 units of 4 Pleasure Seekers. They're 55 points, so they're by far the cheapest of the cavalry in the special unit section. They're demonettes mounted on steeds of Slaanesh. The big thing to remember with all these special units, if you don't have the Storm of Chaos book on hand, is that even though they're demonic cavalry, they all have a single profile. They don't have like horses do, or like regular cavalry where you hit the rider and then the horse. These guys actually have a combined stat line, and this is good. Pleasure Seekers are mounted on 50mm bases as well. The square ones. They're unit strength 3, and they're also have aura of Slaanesh because they're demonettes. But they're movement 10, which is huge because they move 20 inches. They're not fast cav, but they're still they have 4 attacks each, weapon skill 4, strength 4. So a unit of 4 of these, they can actually charge almost any infantry unit right in the front and just chew through them through sheer volume of attacks. The 16 attacks hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, they do a lot of damage. If you don't have a Griffin standard or something to help you, you're gonna lose eventually. And they're only 55 points as well, so they're quite cheap. So yeah, you want to run a bunch of these. And of course, if they shoot you down, because you're 3 wounds with toughness 4, so quite resilient for being Slaanesh. Even if they shoot some down, they break ranks as long as there are 2 of them, because they're unit strength of 3. It's very, very good. It's very. You will notice that through this entire talk, I've talked a lot about breaking ranks, because it's very important for demons to win combats. Even by just for like 1 or 2, because they definitely don't want to lose combats. It's very, very dangerous for them. So yeah, it's and breaking ranks will make things run away, and pleasure seekers and stuff and mounted demoness are very good at running things down. Next thing, and the last thing in the entire demonic legion rundown, is the chariot of Slaanesh. They are so cheap. They're 130 points, movement 10, but they also have scythed wheels and strength 5. So they can do d6 plus 1 impact hits. They have 4 wounds. There are 2 demonettes riding it, so there's 4 attacks there, and then there's 2 mounts, which is another 2 attacks with always strike first as well. The big deal, kind of, that can be. I mean, I talked about not mounting the herald because they die easily, but the chariot of Slaanesh actually has a unit strength of 4, which means if you put a herald on there, it goes to 5, which means it breaks ranks. So there, I mean, I played this a bit when I was younger, when 6th edition was a thing, still going strong back in those days. But as soon as you face something that can shoot down 4 wounds with toughness 4, it's not very good to have a herald on there. But in lower points, it's actually a thing. If you're playing, under 2,000 points, or maybe 1,500, or even 1,250, you can actually run a cheap herald on a chariot, and it'll break rank, and it'll do a lot of impact hits, a lot of damage. So it makes sense. Auto hitting with strength 5 and scythed wheels is always nice. So they're very cheap, very fast. I think you should always take as many as you can, 1 or 2, depending on the point values. Always worth taking. In summation, yeah, it's ridiculously fast army, Slaanesh.
Yeah.
It's so fast, and they have so many attacks, and they're great fun to play, because playing fast armies is fun, at least in my opinion. I really enjoy fast armies. Maneuverability is it's enjoyable.
And you can like playing a demonic legion, you can mix and match all these units if you wanna. We just went through if you want to go mono lists. I mean, I think these lists are stronger by going mono god, but it can make so many fun combinations in your army list going with a undivided, so to say, army list.
Definitely. It's the whole combination of like, what is it, like Tzeentch and Nurgle, and getting all that. I mean, getting Cloud of Flies on models that are hitting your horrors. I mean, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
horrors survive. They just don't die. I mean, if you run an undivided general, or as we talked about before, Be'lakor, who is undivided, you can mix everything, go nuts, and you can run, like demons do nowadays, 1 unit of each god and stuff.
Yeah.
Most of us purists feel that it doesn't feel right, but when it comes to, if you're running Be'lakor, it's actually very fluffy to run everything in one big pile. And speaking of Be'lakor, should we talk a bit about him?
Yeah, let's do so.
Be'lakor is a lord and a hero slot, and he's the special character he's basically the one who created the demonic legion. He decided them. He didn't want to be like, he didn't want our demons to be silly little summon things for the warriors or the beasts. He wanted his own legion, and he is the first of all demon princes. I think fluff-wise, it's actually been discussed that all the 4 chaos gods created Be'lakor together because they wanted to see if they could make a demon prince, but they couldn't decide whose blessing he should have, so he didn't get any, which is why he's so very powerful, because it's sort of like he got all of it. He has 5 spells, which is, very Tzeentchy of him. He has what's it called, insurmountable range, which is very, he needs to charge if there's something close to him. Sounds very corny. Yes, what do you call it? Eternal terror, which sounds very Slaanesh-y. He always has terror, and he has all these things, and he has the Mark of Chaos undivided, which means he gets to reroll psychology tests. Big deal.
Yeah.
It's 650 points. It's very expensive, and he has 5 wounds, strength toughness 5, weapon skill 9, initiative 9, and 5 attacks. A lot of 5s straight across, 5s and 9s. That's what he leaves. But the thing that changes, he's the first demon prince, but he's also the only demon prince that's a large target, so he can be seen. But that's sort of fine, because all enemy shooting aimed at Be'lakor, or any unit in his army, get -1 to hit. So he sort of has the benefits of large targets and not the negatives.
Yeah.
And I mean, his entire army, the entire enemy army has -1 to hit on shooting if you're facing Balakor. This is massive. This is probably one of the best latent abilities in the game. It's just there. You don't have to do anything for it to be there. This is why special characters often need opponents' approval. Basically, he has this awesome rule called Whispers in the Darkness. All enemies suffer -1 to all attempts to rally. Enemy units within 6 of Bellicor suffer -1 to any leadership-based test they take. So an enemy within 6 of Bellicor suffers -2 if they're going to rally. If you combine this with the Aura of Slaanesh, you basically lower all enemy units that are close to Bellicor with -2 leadership. So running a Slaanesh Legion with Bellicor is actually very strong, especially the -1 to hit. Then the toughness 3 doesn't seem so bad. Also, if you try to cast spells at Bellicor, you will miscast on any roll of a double. So if the spell is cast at him with Irresistible Force, it will be cast with Irresistible Force. Then the wizard will suffer an immediate miscast. So you get both. The spell will go through, and then it will be a miscast. And then, of course, his rule, Eternal Terror. This is so horrible. He causes terror, as in the rulebook. However, so terrifying is he that a unit must take a terror test every time they are charged or wish to charge Bellicor, or if he's within 6 of them at the start of their turn, even if they've already passed a terror test early in the game. This is ridiculous. It's just
Sure, it's
so
scary. Yeah.
Yeah, he is so scary. He is like the scariest thing ever. And at the start of each turn, he has to take a leadership test. If he fails, he must charge an enemy. And if there's no one in range that he can see, he must charge an enemy if there is one in range, that he can see. If there are no enemies in range, he must move towards the closest enemy model, stopping 1 inch away from them.
So angry.
So angry. He also reroll all failed rolls to hit, but he also must pursue fleeing enemies that break from combat. So he sort of has frenzy-ish, but not as bad as frenzy, but still, it's not as bad. What do you call it? The level of badness is not as bad, but the level of goodness is twice as good. So yeah, rerolling all failed to hit rolls, very good for him. Other than that, he has his own spell list with 5 spells that only he knows, and they're all very, very good. The basic one, Bolt of Dark Light, cast 7+, range 18, magic missile, d6 strength 5 hits, quite powerful. Next one is Nightmare. Cast it on a visible enemy unit, which is most enemy units, because, large target. But not in close combat. And if it's successfully cast, it immediately needs to take a panic test. Combine this with the fact that he has fly, and the fact that he lowers the leadership to enemies within 6 inches. He can, and I mean, with the Slaanesh stuff, you can skew this quite badly. But I mean, if you had a spell that cost a panic test with -1, that's a very good spell. So, then he has Curse of the Dark Master. Oh, this is so great. Cast on an enemy unit anywhere on the battlefield, even in close combat. If successfully cast, all models in the unit suffer a penalty of -1 to all the rolls to hit, both shooting and close combat, and it remains in play. Let's just, take in for a fact that all enemy shooting is already at -1 to hit because he's on the table. If you have Nurgle units, you have Cloud of Flies. This stacks really badly. So either you give a shooting unit -2 to hit, or a close combat unit -2 to hit. It's very powerful, and its casting value 8+. It's so powerful. So powerful. Also, he has Fog of Death. Cast on 10+, each enemy unit on the table suffer d6 strength 3 hits, randomized as per missile hits. So all enemy units on the table takes d3 strength 3 hits. Yeah, Wood Elves are gonna hate this.
Same as gunline artillery list. I mean, there's still a chance you will hit the crew.
There's definitely a chance you'll hit the crew. And once your fanatics are out, they're gonna hate this.
Yeah, they will. Yes, I released all my fanatics. Oh, they're gone. God damn it.
Dang it. But you actually have to roll a dice for all your own units, and on a 4+, you get affected as well. So it has a bit of a drawback. Next one, this is so great. Oh, I want you to think of the spell in Lore of Nurgle that lowers the toughness by 1 for the remainder of the game. And then we read the spell. On 12+, cast on a single unengaged enemy model within 12 of the caster. You can pick out, whatever you want, inside units or War Machine crews or whatever. Victim must immediately take a toughness test. If failed, the model is crushed to death. No armor saves or ward saves are allowed. Roll of 6 is always a failure. If you don't have a toughness value, you fail only on a 6. But in combination with lowering your toughness for the rest of the game, this can potentially destroy a lot of characters or that one important character.
Yeah, like no armor saves or ward saves are allowed. That's gonna be nasty.
It's going to be so horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember when this was released, my friend played Be'lakor and he fought a Great Unclean One. So he cast that spell for fun and then he guy rolled a 6. And it was just, well, that's no fun. Because the 6 is always a fail. It's like, what is it, 12.5% chance of auto killing
Yeah.
any character in the game? And I mean, if you're doing this to elves, that's like a 4+ and they die.
Chris, do you hear this? You're gonna love this.
If I recall correctly, Teclis has toughness 2, right?
Depends on which potion is drinking. So
Oh, that's
generally,
true. Yeah, right.
generally he's dead.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. In general, he's dead if the spell goes through. The thing is that it says no armor saves or ward saves are allowed. I don't know how it is with regeneration, but that seems to be so rare in this edition, so it's not really much of an issue, I guess.
I think you are allowed to do regeneration because you regenerate after you're dead. Even if you lose all your wounds, you'd roll regeneration at the end of the combat resolution or at the end of the phase. So
That's true.
trolls,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
trolls
It-
might be able to stand up,
Yeah,
and
or,
some
you know,
some
that-
models that model with that certain magic item that gives you regeneration.
Exactly. Oh, I always take the Twisted Crown of the Horned Rat when I build army lists for my Skaven. Or even for my Chaos Warriors, what's it called? The Regeneration Crown in there as well. So yeah, regeneration, that's true. In 6th edition, it's not an additional save. It's its very own thing. It works very uniquely. In later editions, it became sort of a save and became sort of dull. In this edition, it was kind of cool and unique. So yeah, you do get regeneration. So for that one character that decided to take that one magic item, they will live.
Yeah.
The others will.
These poor, simple folk, too fearful or too dull-witted to see the vulgarity and evil in their own midst. They wail and complain about my uncompromising methods, but who among you can say that hanging half a village is a high price to pay for the assurance that corruption has been exposed and destroyed this day? Ernst Traugott, Templar Witch Hunter.
So I think that's a rundown of the entire Demonic Legion army list. This is going to be
Yeah.
such a long episode, isn't it?
It will be.
It will be the longest by far.
Nice.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay, it's okay. Because now we got a real thorough list. It also gave me some ideas because I have a lot of demons on spruce.
And
So-
to be fair,
I was just gonna ask if you know anyone who has some big-handed horrors, let me know, okay?
Yeah, definitely.
I can
Yeah,
trade
write
them
in
a
if you have
third
them.
edition. I can trade them a 3rd edition Great Unclean One for the horrors. After hearing all that Nurgle talk, how can you not want to play the Nurgle Demonic Legion? Right?
Yeah, I know, right? So,
No friends. No, I did have its bad
So-
matchups. It did.
so the thing I wanted to talk about now is kind of like usage of models, because we have a lot of models from the demon ranges from the from the current range from GW, and a lot of them can be used in this army list. I mean, we now have all the demon princes in plastic. The basing is kind of what you need to decide what to do with, because normally the greater demons had 10 by 10 millimeter bases. I would definitely allow people to use larger bases. I know I would do that myself.
I would
It- it-
definitely
it's
use
a
a larger than.
drawback. It's
definitely
it's
of a
definitely a
larger.
drawback.
It depends. I think it depends on the greater demon. I have 2 Lords of Change in front of me right now, and one of them is based on a chariot base, you know, the 50 by 100.
Yeah.
But that's only because then I could potentially play it in like, you know, later editions.
Yeah.
And then the other one is based on the 50 times 50. But if you look at the newer models, I think that the Bloodthirster can probably fit on a proper base, but the Lord of Change
No.
is no.
And
No,
definitely not on the Great Unclean One. That's too big of a model. Unless you make a
yeah.
very, very, very strange scenic base, going small at the base and going wider way up.
Yeah, if you have the weirdest possible rock or something for it to stand on, it could work. But no,
Yeah.
the new Great Unclean one will not be very good here.
But I'm
But
still
on
gonna
the other hand,
say they look great on square bases. I have seen all fours on square bases. The only thing is that gonna be bad for you who play demons because a lot of more models are going to be able to hit back if you use larger bases.
this is really only a negative thing, really. I mean,
Yeah,
they're sure, so there might be some like line of sight maybe increased and
yeah,
such, but in general, it'll be bad for you, and especially if you're running the chariot base, because I think that the Lord of Change can probably fit pretty well on a chariot base because it has this like stance where
yeah,
it's one foot forward, one step behind, moonwalking again, and but then you only increase your flank, which is just bad for you.
yeah,
So nobody should object to this. It's just use those awesome models, and if your opponent has an issue, play a proxy base in front of the model if that's an
yeah,
issue. It works. Just put a
yeah,
50 millimeter square in front of it and say that's where it actually is. Nobody should be whining. You're playing a dead edition for God's sake.
yeah,
It's, I mean, the new models are amazing, and I think that many of the cavalry mod. I mean, the new fiends of Slaanesh are awesome pleasure seekers,
oh yes,
and I would
very
mount them. I
very
mean,
good countess.
very good count as my blood crushers. I've actually mounted on 50 by 75 millimeter bases, just so I can use them in later editions as well.
Yeah,
And that again, that only makes it worse for me because their flanks are wider.
yeah,
But the fiends of Slaanesh would look great on those bases, 50 by 75, and they would fit most of all. I actually got some of those new fiends home last year when they were released, and I decided to try and play them in ninth age. So I decided to put them on 40 millimeter bases, like fiends are supposed to be. And then I ended up selling them all and buying 25 of the old metal fiends instead. Because I was like, screw this. This thing won't even fit. Sure, it can fit, but then it can't rank up because there are tails and claws all over the place.
yeah.
But on a 50 by 75, it looks
That's gonna
great.
yeah. And like we all know, there are plenty of like herald models out there. There are plenty of demon prince models out there, and you can use something in between to just build yourself a demonic herald. No, no, the exalted demon, like since they are demon princes light edition.
Exactly. And Bellacore is still for sale, I think.
Yeah, he is.
And he's probably the most gorgeous demon prince that Games Workshop has ever done.
Oh yes, he sure is.
It's such a gorgeous model, and it has aged so well, except size wise, but model wise, it's
Yeah, yeah.
gorgeous.
Otherwise, he is perfect.
And he's also just with a different paint job. I mean, I used to play Bellacore, and I painted him in all like pinkish to play him as a Slaanesh demon prince because I replaced his sword with a whip from the Bloodthirsters. It became a
Oh,
Slaanesh whip.
cool,
And
cool.
yeah, actually, I just forgot about that. I just reminded me. Yeah, I just remembered that I actually did replace a whip. That was cool. That was not so bad for 17 years old.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was even the Bellacore model painted in a different paint scheme works really well for all the gods. You might want to, get him some man boobs and a gut if you're doing Nurgle. But other than that, he works really well
yeah,
for all the other three. So
yeah. And
you
for a
have
core, yeah,
amazing. I mean, Creature Caster. You have Mirror's Miniatures. You have all these different companies that make amazing demon models. Creature
yeah,
Caster is by far my favorite. They're so weird. The Tzeentch stuff up there is their eyes all over the place. For God's sake, awesome. Yeah, the new models work really well. The new Beast of Nurgle work really well. You can actually even put. I mean, plague drones are basically plague riders. If you take the
yeah,
Plague Rider model and put them on a Beast of Nurgle, it kind of fits very well.
yeah.
You can even
You
yeah, you can.
you can do that, or you can also use the current beasts of Nurgle for those models as well.
It's true because they only have one stat line, so
Yeah,
you don't even need the rider. Back in sixth edition, many people converted these into weird beasties that didn't have riders because they had
exactly.
one
Yeah,
profile. So you just don't forget that they're not immune to killing blow.
true.
But it's actually quite good to trick your opponent. Don't have a rider on them.
Yeah,
I mean, I run old Fiends of Slaanesh as pleasure seekers, so that works. I mean, they work perfectly for that.
Oh
So,
yeah. And Changebringers, easy to convert. I mean, you need a disc and a flamer. Simpler than that, it doesn't get.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't. And the discs are very easy to make yourself. Either you make them from plastic card and green stuff and things, or you just take, I don't know, you can use screamers for discs. That
Yeah.
also works. Or build your own from screamer bits. I just
Yeah.
ordered 10 Chaos Stars, like 1 inch in diameter, to put on plastic card because I'm going to build my own discs for the Changebringers.
Cool.
Yeah, you definitely. I mean, I'm trying to build it because I have all the old stuff. I don't want the new discs because they don't fit. They're too good looking. It needs to be uglier.
You look
That
too
old,
good.
you know.
Stop it.
Yeah, that's what you
But I
don't
mean,
like about the PS5,
otherwise,
right?
if
Everything's too
you were a
pretty.
bit laggy there. Yeah, it is. It is. Although, if you do want to use plastic discs, looking very Tzeentchy, you can buy the cool Beastmans on discs from whatever the army is called in Age of
Yeah,
Sigmar. The
those
bottles
are
are great, but
fantastic.
you can
Change
you can also use them completely as Changebringers because their bows could be their throwing attacks is like only short ranged. But yeah,
yeah, definitely.
those.
Oh yeah, the
But
Zangors on discs or
otherwise,
whatever they're called.
yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. The tricky part playing this list is the chariots because we only have a Slaanesh chariot out there.
There's a burning chariot.
Oh yeah, there is. I forgot about that one. So we have two out of four. So I mean, the Khorne one, you could practically use the throne thingy majingy from the current line. Just it's a bit of count as, but you could also use the Chaos Chariot and use that Blood Beast or whatever it's called. That's what the big thing pulling it and have it count as a Juggernaut or just put a Juggernaut in front of it. I mean, it's a very big metal chariot. It's gonna work out.
Think that the the corn chariots works really well because you can use a Chaos Warrior chariot with
Yeah,
Juggernauts, of course, but it's the same for the Nurgle. Really, you just I mean the Nurgle
yeah,
chariot with the new. What I really want though, I will probably take an Orc chariot for the Nurgle one because I really like the Nurgle stuff to be wood so that it can be
yeah,
sort of gross.
yeah. Like yeah, all the rotten wood.
All that rotten wood, yeah, that works really well. Um, so yeah, making them is quite fun, and the fact that they're on 100 times 100 bases, you can do like a whole scenic thing on them.
Yes.
Because they look really neat. You can with Nurgle, you might want to have the citadel wood trees and stuff that look all dead and gross, and maybe some from the new giant stuff like the signs and the cage and everything. Yeah, you can do a lot there. You can definitely and what I like to do with the Nurgle chariot, you can actually use the new special character that's on a huge slug, a huge snail.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hortical Slimux.
Exactly, you can actually use him straight up as a
Yeah,
Nurgle chariot with one beast, of course, but
yeah.
you just put him on a larger base and some scenic stuff, and you can just count it as two.
True.
Doesn't matter. It's actually, the entire Nurgle line does really well.
Yeah.
The Demonic Legion. They basically filled it out during the course of the years. And mount demonettes, they exist nowadays
Yeah.
in plastic. You can just get them. Screamers are plastic. I mean, and now you
Yeah,
can.
crushers
I
of
would probably
plastic.
buy. Yeah, crushers are plastic too. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
And I mean, I would probably use blue horrors for horrors because they're smaller, so it
yeah,
kind of looks more fitting. Because horrors are supposed to be kind of small, and the web skill 2, toughness 3, they're tiny magical things. So if I would go a new route today with plastic models, I would definitely buy blue horrors. And then I would, if I went mixed, I would actually buy brimstone horrors and use for Nurglings. That was
oh, cool.
if you make like a Tzeentch themed list,
Yeah,
that could work. And Nurglings are gorgeous. The new models are fantastic. So
yeah, they
um,
are.
there's so much more. I mean, there's so much fun. They almost went back to like the third, fourth edition style where they more
Yeah, I
humans.
know, I know. This is they kind of did the whole thing design-wise with all demons nowadays because they look a lot like the old fourth/fifth edition demons, although very modernized.
Yeah, definitely. I remember when they first released the plastic bloodletters, and all of us old hammer types is like, hey, I've seen that before.
I know this look. That's not a beastman with an axe. This is a true bloodletter.
Yeah, the sixth edition bloodletters, they were really pretty, but they
Yeah,
just looked more like corn gores.
they did. Also, I got those models playing 40k in third edition, and that gut
Here.
plate they have, that was a 3+ armor save.
Yeah, I got so disappointed when they released the Demonic Legion or the Hordes of Chaos book, and they're like, yeah, 6+, they're light armor.
Yeah, Bob. Oh
And you're
God.
like, but I played them in 40k and they have power armor.
Power armor and power weapon. What do you give me? Light armor and strength 5. I like the strength 5. I like it.
So they were so broken back in third edition 40k, like Deep
Yeah.
Strike and Charge. That was horrible. Killed everything with power weapons. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, I mean, the entire demon line, it's basically released.
Yeah.
All these models that we spent so much time converting back in the day, they're released now. Just buy them.
Yeah.
Buy them, play them, have awesome fun. Demonic Legions are a great army. I mean, I prefer the Tzeentch and Slaanesh because they're fast moving and they offer a sort of a maneuverability thing, and they also have very bad matchups, which is fun because that makes it more challenging. And if you really want to, hate yourself, get that Khorne Demonic Legion out there with all that frenzy. Once you learn it, you're going to do really well, and people are going to hate you because they think that frenzy is all of a sudden a buff instead of a negative thing. But
Yeah.
once you learn how to handle that, it's very powerful. And we all want to play a Bloodthirster that charges a huge unit of Tomb King chariots.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Well,
I
that
don't know
was
if we have
sure
anything.
was one rundown.
Sure was one rundown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry it took so long, guys.
It's okay.
Well, it's good to have a rundown with someone that is passionate and actually knows the army inside and out.
That's how. Well, thank you. That's what I felt when I was asked to do this. It's like I got to do this seriously. I mean, I read it all through, and I'm like, yeah, this shouldn't be too much. But then I forgot to count on the fact that I was supposed to talk to two people at the same time, and everything because they were supposed to discuss everything, and all of a sudden it like takes twice as long.
Yeah, I've had it great. I've just been listening to like it's another podcast and just been painting, so it's fine by me.
Yeah, that sounds good. And the fact that you mentioned in the beginning, like, this is also going to be Beast of Chaos, and I thought, oh wow, it's going to be a long.
Well, we'll see about that. There might be some kind of problem with clearing the rights to the voice actor, for Krell.
Oh yeah, that's true. I heard.
Yeah.
Maybe he needs to have his own episode.
Yeah.
He can get his royalties. Yeah.
But it's been great having you
that's
on.
about all.
Yeah.
I think I lost you there.
It's been a great discussion, and I got 19 halberders done. Now we just need to build them a command group.
Oh, you guys have been hobbying?
Oh,
I haven't done
yeah.
anything.
Because when I don't need to use text this press to speech, I can do a lot of hobby stuff meanwhile.
Yeah, usually when I listen to you guys, I'm always out walking the dog. So I mean, I was just sitting here with my document in front of me. I should have been hobbying. Dang it! Oh well.
Yeah,
How's the bolt thrower
podcasts are
coming?
great for dog walking. The bolt thrower is nigh on finished. I need to do some details on the crew, and then it's flocking and it's done.
That's the second one or the first one?
This is the second one.
Second one, yeah, because the first one was last month, right?
Yeah, it was finished on the 30th, but I haven't posted them because I want to post them together.
All right, of course. Yeah, that makes sense because they're one rare choice, right? Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the April challenge. I told myself I would paint 30 clan rats and 40 clan rat slaves, but then I decided to get a bunch of demons instead. So I might paint a unit of horrors.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Time to get working on that Tzeentch Demonic Legion. I got really psyched now for all this talk.
And you planted a seed within me. This is bad. This is really bad.
Yeah. I hope it wasn't a Nurgle seed.
No, It's it's a Tzeentch actually, because I have some flamers, some discs around, and I have a lot of screamers still on sprue.
That sounds brilliant. I only have
Yeah,
the old screamers. I have a unit of 3 old ones, and I really like the old ones. I sort of preferred them because they had even more of the manta ray
yeah,
feeling to it.
yeah. They have the metal models have a bit more character in them than the plastic ones. The plastic still look good, but the metal
Yeah,
looks so much better.
but what I really loved about the plastic, because I painted, as I said, 27 of those for 40K back in the day. So, but I love that they had eyes because painting
Yeah,
eyes is so much fun.
it is.
But the other ones are more, how do you say, animalistic because they don't have eyes, so they're almost more demonic. There are no eyes there. So yeah, but they're horrible as well. I mean, the metal models are completely horrid to put together and line up with the weird tail things. Yeah, the plastic ones are better in almost always.
And they break on their stands all the time.
All the time. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, "Oh yeah, Jimmy and Flogger are correct. The old ones are prettier. I should get those on eBay." Yeah, don't do it. Just
Unless,
buy the new ones. Live with
yeah, unless you want to pin them and use metal rods instead of those clear clear stands.
Yeah, that's a must. Yeah, you have to use metal rods or plastic rods of some sort, but any thick
Yeah.
thick rods. They will break, and you will hate yourself. You will also always break mid game. Never in transport. Never while you're painting or gluing. Always mid game at a tournament where there's no one who has
This
to
is this is true.
And with those words of warning, I'm gonna round this off so we don't
Yeah.
and continue just rambling for another hour, which we probably could do if we wanted to.
We could.
leave
Yeah.
it. All right,
But,
great to be on the cast, guys.
yeah,
And
thank you for coming
Thank
on.
you for being with
yeah,
us. Yeah.
yeah, no worries. I'll come by next time you need to talk demons. So I'll see you guys around. Hopefully, you guys can come down for the tournament we're planning to organize in 6th edition. And now it's official because I said it on the cast. So,
Oh,
all
now
right,
we just
guys,
need a date.
we just need a
And
date,
the
and then we need
allowance from the Swedish whatever nest, because we can't be like 50 people or more right now at an event.
the apocalypse to end. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Other than that, all right. Thanks a lot,
Yep.
guys, and great to be here. And I'm
Yeah.
signing off.